What time is it where you are? Perhaps it is late and your room is dim and the air feels quieter than it did during the day. You're lying back, listening, and outside your window, somewhere above your roof, the night sky is turning slowly. The stars that our ancestors looked at thousands of years ago are still there, their light still crossing unimaginable gulfs of time and distance to reach your eyes tonight. It is humbling and strangely comforting to think that the same stars are visible to millions of others across the planet at this exact moment. Wherever you are, whether it is midnight or only the edge of evening, you are part of that silent congregation under the cosmos. Now imagine just for a moment lifting your gaze. Beyond the familiar constellations, beyond Orion's belt and the winding river of the Milky Way, there is motion that is not part of the steady eternal background. There are visitors, objects that do not belong to our solar system, passing through only once, cutting across our sky with speeds and paths unlike anything born from our sun. Most of them are invisible to us, too small, too dark or too quick to notice, but every so often one is spotted, and when that happens the scientific world holds its breath. In the year 2017, we found the first, ʻOumuamua, the messenger from afar, long and thin, strange in every respect. 2 years later, another, Borisov, which looked more like a comet, familiar yet still interstellar, and now, whispered in astronomical journals and quiet press releases, there is a third, Atlas, the third interstellar visitor ever confirmed. Its path is not bound to the sun, it came from the stars, and it will return to them. This story begins with telescopes. Every night, on the peaks of mountains and in deserts where the air is dry and still, machines scan the heavens, watching for tiny flickers of light that move. They are the guardians of our skies, their task simple yet monumental, to find anything unusual, anything unexpected, anything that could collide with Earth or remind us of how vulnerable we are. The Pan-STARRS survey in Hawaii, the Atlas network designed to track potentially hazardous asteroids. Wide-field cameras sweeping across the stars like slow mechanical eyes. It was during one of these routine sweeps that 3 Atlas first revealed itself. At first, it was just a faint point of light, no different from the countless asteroids discovered every month. Its name, Atlas, was given not for its nature but for the telescope system that spotted it. Only later, after careful calculations of its orbit, did astronomers realize that this object was not circling the Sun in an ellipse. Not a local wanderer of our solar system, but something far stranger. It was travelling on a hyperbolic trajectory, a one-way trip through our neighbourhood never to return. That realization changed everything. Imagine what it means for something to be interstellar. The distances involved are so immense that even light, which travels at 300,000 kilometers per second, takes years to bridge the gap between stars. A rock or comet drifting through interstellar space might have been travelling for millions, even billions of years. Its surface would be scarred by cosmic rays, its ices frozen harder than anything on Earth, its history older than our entire species. When such an object enters our solar system, we are granted a brief, fragile glimpse into the wider galaxy. It is as though the universe itself has delivered a package to our doorstep, and we are given only days or weeks to examine it, before it moves beyond our reach forever. 3I Atlas, the third such visitor, seemed at first to be a faint echo of Borisov. Small, icy, and comet-like, it trailed a diffuse halo of vapour as it neared the sun. But almost immediately, astronomers noticed inconsistencies. Its brightness fluctuated strangely. Its apparent size shifted in ways not fully explained by simple models of outgassing ice. Some of its light curves suggested fragmentation, as though it were breaking apart. Yet the pieces did not behave as they should have. For you, listening now, perhaps lying in the quiet of your room, it may feel distant, just another speck in space. But consider this. When we track an interstellar object, we are seeing something that has passed silently between stars, untouched by any sun, drifting in the dark for unthinkable spans of time. The atoms of its body may have condensed in a different solar system altogether, around a star we cannot even name, before being ejected into the void by gravitational chaos. That alone is extraordinary. It is like finding a seashell on your doorstep and realizing it came from a shoreline on the other side of the world. But with 3I Atlas, as with its predecessors, the more we looked, the less we understood. Its orbit was confirmed, hyperbolic, eccentric, undeniably interstellar. Its trajectory carried it past the sun at a wide distance, less dramatic than Borisov but enough to make it glow faintly. And then, anomalies, data points that didn't fit, measurements that resisted explanation. Astronomers are cautious by nature, trained to seek natural explanations first, to avoid wild claims. But there is something about interstellar visitors that unsettles even the most rational minds. Perhaps it is the knowledge that these objects are emissaries of the unknown. Perhaps it is the fact that every time we think we understand them, they slip away. Outside, the night is calm. Stars burn as they have always burned. Your breath slows. The story is only beginning. In the chapters to come, we will follow 3i Atlas across its brief passage through our system, examining the data, weighing the theories, and then, when science fails us, wandering into speculation. For now, hold on to this simple truth. Somewhere above you, long ago, a point of light was recorded. It was faint, forgettable, a mere dot in the endless sky. And yet that dot was not from here. It was a messenger, a third sign that the universe is not empty but restless, sending fragments of distant worlds to knock quietly on our door. Sleep if you wish, or listen further as we step closer to the mystery. The discovery of an interstellar object is never accompanied by fanfare. There are no trumpets, no immediate headlines, no scientist running into the streets. It begins quietly, almost invisibly, as all great cosmic revelations do, with a faint point of light moving against the starfield. On the night of discovery, the telescope responsible was part of the Atlas project, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. Its name sounds dramatic, but its mission is simple: to catch the small, often dangerous asteroids that could threaten Earth. Atlas is not built to study interstellar mysteries. It is built as a warning system, an early alarm, watching the sky for dark rocks that could one day strike our planet. Each night, the twin Atlas telescopes in Hawaii sweep across vast arcs of the heavens, snapping images every few minutes, looking for anything that shifts from frame to frame. To the human eye, these images would be overwhelming. Millions of stars, endless points of brightness scattered across black. But the software is patient. It compares one image to the next, pixel by pixel, flagging any speck of light that moves against the fixed background of the stars. On this particular night, one of those flagged points looked unremarkable. Just another possible asteroid, another item for the catalogue. The data was logged, the object marked for follow-up, and the sky continued on. But the universe has a way of hiding its most important secrets in plain sight. Over the following days, astronomers tracked this faint light, measuring its motion, calculating its orbit. At first, it seemed to be one more long-period comet, drawn in from the distant reaches of the Oort cloud. Its brightness fluctuated faintly, suggesting a dusty halo. It looked ordinary. But then, the numbers refused to settle. The orbit was not elliptical, not even stretched to the limits of the sun's reach. It was hyperbolic. That one word changed everything. A hyperbolic orbit means freedom. It means that an object is not bound to the sun, not a citizen of this system. It is passing through only once, pulled slightly by gravity as it swings close, but destined to leave again, accelerating outward forever. Hyperbolic orbits do not belong to native asteroids or comets. They belong to visitors, objects from beyond. When the orbital elements were published, there was a flicker of recognition across the astronomical community. First ʻOumuamua, then Borisov, now Atlas. 3 interstellar objects in only a handful of years. For centuries, we had never confirmed a single one. The silence of the sky had seemed complete. And now, suddenly, they were arriving in sequence as if the cosmos had decided to remind us of its restless traffic. The confirmation sparked debates. Was this a true interstellar traveller, or could perturbations and observational errors explain its strange path? The mathematics answered firmly. No. The eccentricity of its orbit, greater than 1, was undeniable. This was not ours. If you close your eyes, you can picture it. The lonely fragment of ice and dust hurtling across interstellar space for millions of years. It drifts unseen between the stars, surrounded only by the black vacuum and the faint hiss of cosmic radiation. Entire civilizations could rise and fall in the time it takes for such an object to cross from one star system to another. And then, by chance, by the pull of our sun's gravity, It is guided into the inner solar system, where for a brief moment human eyes and instruments can glimpse it. The astronomers who first tracked Atlas were cautious. Comets are fragile things, and this one seemed especially faint, as if already weakened by its long journey. Its path would not bring it dangerously close to Earth, but it would pass within reach of our instruments, close enough for telescopes to study its spectrum, its glow, its chemical fingerprint. Data began to flow in. Brightness curves, coma measurements, velocity. Each night, the object grew more real, less a dot of light and more a tangible piece of another world. There is a strange intimacy in the act of discovery. Imagine being one of the first humans to realize that this small flicker of light is not local, that it has travelled across the galaxy to be seen by you, now, in this fragile moment of human history. The telescope operators, the scientists calculating the orbit, must have felt a quiet thrill, though science demands restraint. They would have exchanged careful emails, published careful notes, avoiding speculation. But beneath that professional language there must have been awe. For the rest of us, far from observatories, the sky that night looked unchanged. Stars glittered as they always have, the moon moved through its phases, the constellations returned with their seasonal rhythm. No one walking their dog, or closing their window blinds, or glancing up from a darkened street would have known that a visitor was gliding through the deep, one that had never been here before and never would again. That is the nature of the cosmos. Profound events occur silently, invisibly, with no sign but the careful marks on a telescope's CCD sensor. It is only later, when patterns are revealed, when the strangeness accumulates, that the weight of the discovery becomes clear. 3I Atlas had entered our story. It would not stay long. Already its speed guaranteed a swift passage. Already its faintness warned us that it might not survive its encounter with the sun. Yet for as long as it was here, it would offer us a puzzle, a riddle written in the language of light curves and spectra, a chance to glimpse the wider galaxy through the narrow keyhole of our instruments. Outside your window, as you listen now, imagine that moment of first realization. A scientist staring at a screen, noticing that the numbers are wrong. Wrong in a way that means wonder. Wrong in a way that means the universe has given us another message. The object is small, fragile, doomed to leave us, but its arrival is undeniable. It is here. You breathe slowly. The night remains quiet. But in the silence, a story has begun, one that will unfold across datasheets, telescopic images, and restless human imagination. We are not alone in our solar system tonight. A guest has arrived, uninvited, unexplained, and already moving toward its inevitable exit. When an interstellar object first reveals itself to us, it arrives not as a photograph, not as a dazzling image you can frame and hang on a wall, but as numbers. Rows of data, right ascension, declination, apparent magnitude, timestamps, cold, clinical, the kind of information that would put most people to sleep if left on its own. But hidden inside those numbers are truths stranger than any story. For astronomers, each measurement is a brushstroke in a portrait, and slowly the figure emerges, a visitor passing through our solar system, leaving only mathematical footprints as proof of its reality. For 3I Atlas, the first and most important number was speed. When we speak of interstellar objects, speed is the signature that gives them away. Local asteroids and comets, bound to the sun, move at familiar velocities, circling in ellipses determined by gravity. But Atlas was different. Even before its closest approach, calculations showed it was travelling at nearly 30 kilometers per second relative to the sun. That may sound modest at first, a number buried in technical jargon, but let's unfold it. 30 kilometers per second is 108,000 kilometers per hour, faster than any spacecraft humanity has ever built, faster than a rifle bullet by a factor of more than 100. Imagine standing on the surface of Earth and firing a gun skyward. The bullet will rise, slow and fall, but 3 Atlas is a bullet that never slows, one that continues beyond the target, never to return. Its path is not a circle, not even an ellipse. It is hyperbolic, opening outward forever. That trajectory, traced against the backdrop of the stars, is the unmistakable fingerprint of an interstellar traveller. The second number was size, though here the answers were less certain. Astronomers cannot simply look at a point of light and know how large it is. They must infer. The brightness tells us something about its surface area, the colour about its reflectivity. By comparing its glow with known objects, Scientists estimated that Atlas was a fragile body, perhaps only a few hundred meters across at most, perhaps smaller, perhaps larger. Some argued for 50 meters, others for 400. The uncertainty was wide, but the consensus was clear. It was no giant world, no massive asteroid. It was something delicate, faint, a shard rather than a planetesimal. Then came the question of composition. Light holds secrets. When sunlight reflects off a body, or when gases around it fluoresce, they leave signatures in the spectrum. By spreading the light of Atlas into its component colours, astronomers could glimpse what it was made of. The early readings suggested dust and volatile ices, not unlike those of ordinary comets. There was water vapour, faint carbon compounds, a whisper of sodium. It looked, in some respects, familiar. And yet, there were irregularities in its brightness, sudden flickers that hinted at fragmentation, instability, a body not entirely whole. Trajectory was the next puzzle. From where had Atlas come? Tracing its hyperbolic orbit backward, astronomers attempted to find its origin star, its parent system. But the sky is vast and small uncertainties magnify over millions of years. The path of Atlas dissolved into probability clouds, pointing not to a single origin but to a region of the sky in the constellation of Lyra. Somewhere out there, among the stars that form the shape of the harp, Atlas had once belonged. Or perhaps not. The farther one traces it, the less certain the answer becomes. It may have been wandering interstellar space for so long that its origin is lost entirely, erased by countless gravitational nudges from stars passed in the dark. And so the numbers piled up, and with them the contradictions. Its speed was consistent with an interstellar object, but its fragmentation seemed premature, as if it were unusually fragile. Its brightness fluctuated in ways that ordinary comets did not. Its chemical traces were comet-like, but its behaviour was not. Observatories around the world joined the effort, each telescope adding more pieces to the puzzle. The Hubble Space Telescope turned its eye toward the visitor, capturing faint images of a dusty cloud trailing a disrupted nucleus. The European Southern Observatory tracked its spectrum from Chile. Amateur astronomers too aimed their smaller instruments skyward, eager to claim even a glimpse of the rare interstellar guest. Numbers became plots, plots became theories, theories became debates. Was Atlas simply a comet from another system, breaking apart as it approached our sun, its first brush with starlight in millions of years proving too much for its fragile body? Or was there something subtler, something stranger guiding its behaviour? Consider this. Interstellar objects are not common. For billions of years the solar system has been relatively quiet, with no confirmed visitors from beyond. Then, in the space of a few short years, 3 appear. ʻOumuamua, Borisov, and now Atlas. Statistically, it seems almost too generous, as if the cosmos had decided to deliver us riddles in quick succession. Some scientists suggested that such visitors may actually be far more common than we realized, only invisible until our modern survey telescopes were powerful enough to detect them. Others wondered whether we were simply lucky or unlucky to be alive at this exact moment in astronomical history. But numbers are impartial. They do not care about our stories, they only speak their truth. Atlas was here, Atlas was small, Atlas was fast, Atlas was fragile. Each of these statements was true, yet none of them explained the whole. For you, listening in the quiet now, these numbers may seem abstract, floating like meaningless fragments in the void. But they are the language of the cosmos, the only way we can converse with an object that has no voice. When we say it is 30 kilometers per second, we are saying it is not of this world. When we say it is 100 meters wide, we are saying it is vulnerable, temporary, fleeting. When we say it is composed of dust and ice, we are saying it carries the fingerprint of another system, another chemistry, another history written in frozen molecules. Imagine cradling a pebble in your hand, a pebble from your backyard worn by rain and weather. Now imagine that pebble has travelled from another continent, another ocean, another world. The difference is staggering, and yet the pebble looks the same. Atlas is like that pebble. To the eye it is a faint dot in the telescope, to the mind it is a messenger from light years away. There is comfort in the precision of numbers, but there is also unease. Every time we measured Atlas, it slipped slightly beyond our grasp. Its fragmentation confused predictions. Its brightness refused to stabilize. It was like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you gripped, the more it escaped. And yet, in those uncertainties, in those contradictions, lay the beginnings of mystery. Astronomers continued to watch. Night after night data streamed in, while debates simmered quietly. Was Atlas a fragile interstellar comet disintegrating on schedule? Or was there something more beneath the numbers? A signal in the noise? A pattern we had not yet recognized? The night sky, patient as always, offered no answers. Stars burned, planets traced their paths, and in the middle of it all one faint object slipped silently across our system, leaving numbers in its wake, numbers that spoke of distance, speed, fragility, and strangeness. Numbers that hinted ever so faintly that the universe is larger, darker, and more restless than we allow ourselves to believe. Breathe slowly. Let the data wash over you. The visitor has arrived and the puzzle has begun. When we speak of interstellar visitors, the mind longs for comparisons. We want to place them in context, to say this one is like that one, or this one is entirely new. The truth is, in the grand history of astronomy, the ledger is thin. Only 2 confirmed interstellar objects precede Atlas, ʻOumuamua and Borisov, 3 lonely entries in a catalogue that will someday perhaps be much longer. But for now, it is as if 3 strangers have stepped into our home after centuries of silence, each carrying secrets we barely understand. The first, ʻOumuamua, announced itself in 2017. It arrived suddenly, a sliver of light detected by the Pan-STARRS telescope in Hawaii. Its name, Hawaiian for scout or messenger, seemed appropriate. But what captured the imagination was not only that it came from outside, but how strange it was. ʻOumuamua did not behave like any comet or asteroid we knew. Its shape appeared elongated, perhaps cigar-like, perhaps pancake-flat, depending on interpretations of the light curve. It had no visible coma, no trail of dust or vapour, and yet it accelerated ever so slightly as it left the sun, as if propelled by some unseen hand. At the time, the scientific community bent itself into knots trying to explain it. Was it an icy shard releasing gas too faint to detect? Was it a fragment of a shattered planetesimal, tumbled and tossed until it reached us? Or was it something else? A probe, a light sail, a relic of alien engineering? Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb made headlines suggesting the latter, igniting debates that still simmer today. ʻOumuamua slipped away before we could know for certain, leaving us with questions that remain unresolved. Then came Borisov in 2019. Unlike ʻOumuamua, Borisov looked more familiar. It bore the unmistakable halo of a comet, outgassing as it approached the sun. Its spectrum revealed water, carbon monoxide, cyanide, the chemical signatures of ices sublimating into gas. In many respects, Borisov was a comet like any other, except for one crucial fact. Its orbit was hyperbolic. It had not formed here. Its ices, its dust, its entire body carried the fingerprint of another star system. For astronomers, Borisov was less mysterious than ʻOumuamua, but no less extraordinary. It was proof that comets, like seeds, travel between stars, drifting across the void. And now, Thurisai Atlas, the third entry. Its place between these 2 predecessors is complicated. Like Borisov, it seemed cometary, fragile, dusty, luminous when near the sun. But like ʻOumuamua, it refused to fit neatly into our categories. Its fragmentation came too soon, its brightness behaved oddly, its datasets conflicted. It was as though the universe had combined features of both earlier visitors into something that straddled the line between the familiar and the uncanny. To understand the cosmic context, imagine lining them up. ʻOumuamua, Borisov, and Atlas, 3 travellers from the galactic sea. ʻOumuamua, enigmatic, featureless, refusing to give us a tail or a coma, yet hinting at propulsion beyond gravity. Borisov, generous with data, its tail stretching for hundreds of thousands of kilometres, confirming what we expected, that comets exist everywhere, not just here. And Atlas, the fragile third, disintegrating under our gaze, a reminder that not every messenger arrives intact, that sometimes the story is written in its unravelling. Why does this matter? Because each interstellar visitor is a clue. Imagine trying to understand an entire civilization by finding 3 artifacts: a twisted shard of metal, a cracked vase, and a fragment of bone. Each tells a story, but incomplete. Together, they suggest patterns and invite speculation. ʻOumuamua tells us that interstellar objects can be bizarre, not fitting our expectations. Borisov tells us that comets like those in our own system form elsewhere too. And Atlas tells us that some interstellar visitors are fragile, perhaps ancient, perhaps weakened by eons adrift. There is another context to consider: rarity. For centuries, astronomers had no confirmed interstellar objects. Now, within just a few years, we have 3. This sudden cluster unsettles some. Was it simply that our technology finally caught up, that surveys like Pan-STARRS and Atlas became sensitive enough to spot them? Or is something else happening? Are we in a moment of cosmic alignment, a stream of interstellar debris passing through our region of the galaxy, brushing against our sun like a cosmic tide? If you lie still and imagine it, you can almost see it, a great river of fragments, broken from distant systems, drifting between the stars. Every so often, the sun's gravity nets one of them briefly, pulling it into a curved path before letting it go again. Most escape unnoticed, but now, with our telescopes scanning the skies every night, we have begun to catch glimpses. 3 in succession, like 3 whispers through the darkness. Atlas stands apart in one more way: timing. Its discovery came at a moment when ʻOumuamua was still haunting our imagination, and Borisov had only recently departed. The memory of those mysteries was fresh. Scientists and the public alike were primed to see strangeness, to wonder if this third visitor would resolve the puzzle or deepen it. It did not resolve, it only deepened. Think of it this way: ʻOumuamua gave us too little data, a mystery of absence. Borisov gave us abundant data, a mystery of abundance. Atlas gave us conflicting data, a mystery of contradiction. In each case, the universe seemed to taunt us, offering a glimpse but not a revelation, a puzzle without a solution. Cosmic context also means humility. These 3 objects are not necessarily unique. There may be thousands like them, passing through unseen. We happen to catch 3, and our interpretations may be coloured by chance. But perhaps that is the point. Each visitor reminds us of how little we know, how vast the galaxy is, how fragile our grasp on certainty. As you listen now, breathe slowly and let the comparison settle. 3 visitors, 3 strangers, each different, each incomplete, each leaving us with more questions than answers. ʻOumuamua, the messenger; Borisov, the wanderer; Atlas, the fragile. Above you tonight, the constellations turn as they always have. Lyra, Cygnus, Orion. Somewhere out there, more fragments drift waiting to be found. Perhaps one is already inbound, invisible for now, destined to be the 4th. Perhaps as you listen, telescopes are catching its first faint glimmers, logging its position, unaware of the strangeness it will bring. But tonight we remain with 3. And the 3rd, Atlas, refuses to sit comfortably in its place. It is a reminder that comparison does not always lead to clarity. Sometimes the more we compare, the less we understand. The night is patient, the sky is vast, and the visitors are few. Sleep if you wish, or follow the story onward. For in the next chapter we will face the first true anomaly, the data that defies not only expectation but explanation, the moment when science begins to falter. Science is built on the expectation that the universe will behave consistently. When we chart the orbit of a planet, it follows Newton's laws. When we measure the spectrum of a star, it obeys the rules of atomic physics. Even when discoveries are surprising, they fit into the larger framework. But every so often, something arrives that resists our categories, something that does not fit. With 3i Atlas, that resistance appeared early, in the form of a quiet, stubborn anomaly. At first, astronomers believed Atlas would behave like any fragile comet, warming as it approached the sun, its ices vaporizing, forming a faint halo and perhaps a tail. But the brightness curves told another story. Night after night, telescopes measured its glow, and the numbers began to shift in ways no one expected. The object brightened too quickly, far faster than predicted for an ordinary comet of its size. Its magnitude jumped not smoothly, but erratically, as though something inside it was unstable. A comet brightens when sunlight releases gas and dust from its surface. The effect is predictable, almost mathematical. But Atlas flared as if from sudden bursts, fits and starts, like a candle sputtering in the wind. Some astronomers wondered if it was fragmenting, breaking apart as stresses from the sun's gravity and heat pulled it loose. Others noted that the fragments, if they existed, were not behaving like normal debris. Instead of dispersing into clear trails, they clung strangely, producing light curves that rose and fell in ways that made no sense. The second anomaly was its survival, or lack thereof. Comets, even fragile ones, usually survive long enough for us to study them in detail. Atlas began to disintegrate earlier than expected, its nucleus apparently breaking into pieces well before perihelion, the closest point to the Sun. This premature disruption robbed astronomers of a longer study, but it also raised uncomfortable questions. Why would an interstellar object, hardened by untold millions of years in the frozen dark, fall apart so easily under conditions that ordinary solar system comets endure? Some suggested that its long journey had made it brittle, weakened by cosmic rays, its surface riddled with microfractures. Others argued that perhaps it was not a single nucleus at all, but a cluster loosely bound, held together for eons only to unravel in the warmth of starlight. But neither explanation felt entirely satisfying. The light fluctuations continued to misbehave, resisting easy models. Then came the question of composition. Spectral readings revealed hints of gas, but not enough to fully account for the brightness changes. The object seemed dusty, yes, but also oddly depleted. Some astronomers noted the absence of certain emission lines common in comets, as though Atlas was missing pieces of chemistry we take for granted. It was a comet, and yet not quite. The analogy used by one researcher was that of a book with half its pages missing. You could still tell it was a book, but the story was incomplete. The anomaly deepened when attempts were made to trace its structure visually. The Hubble Space Telescope captured images of Atlas in mid-disruption, revealing multiple fragments surrounded by a diffuse cloud. But the fragments were oddly uniform in brightness, as though they had split evenly, rather than in the usual chaotic spray of cometary breakups. It was almost too neat, too symmetrical, like beads scattered on a table, rather than shards from a shattered glass. These details may seem small, technical, inconsequential, but in science, anomalies matter. They are the cracks in the wall of certainty, the places where new truths seep through. Atlas was supposed to be simple, an interstellar comet, fragile, fleeting, breaking apart. Instead, its behavior whispered of something stranger. For the public, these details were invisible. Few outside astronomy even knew Atlas existed. Its discovery did not capture headlines the way ʻOumuamua had. No major newspaper published breathless speculation about alien probes. But among the quiet community of those who studied the sky, the anomalies gnawed. Why was it breaking apart so soon? Why did its light curves flicker so oddly? Why did its fragments look so symmetrical? Imagine for a moment standing in a dark room with a clock. The clock ticks steadily, predictably. Each second arrives in rhythm, each gear turns in harmony. That is how most celestial bodies behave. Steady, predictable, lawful. Now imagine that one night the clock begins to skip. A tick comes early, then late, then 2 ticks at once. The gears still turn, but not in the way they should. You lean closer, uncertain. Has the clock broken, or is it keeping time to some rhythm you do not understand? That was Atlas. A clock skipping its ticks, a comet breaking too soon, too strangely, a pattern that resisted explanation. For astronomers, anomalies are both thrilling and frustrating. They hint at discovery, but they also mock our ignorance. The challenge is not to leap to wild conclusions, but to sit with the discomfort, to let the data accumulate, to resist the temptation of easy answers. But Atlas did not grant that patience. It was disintegrating, fading, leaving us only fragments of time to observe. Each night the anomaly grew sharper, even as the object itself grew weaker. The first anomaly, then, was not a single data point, but a cluster of contradictions. A brightness curve that made no sense, a disintegration that came too soon, a structure that split too neatly, a spectrum that hinted at missing chemistry. Each alone might be explained. Together they formed a knot, one that tightened with every observation. For you, listening now, perhaps drifting at the edge of sleep, the details may blur. Numbers and spectra, fragments and curves, all technical, all distant. But let the feeling remain. The sense that something small and fragile passing briefly through our sky was behaving in ways that defied the ordinary. That scientists so accustomed to certainty were left staring at graphs with furrowed brows, whispering words like unusual and unexpected. Outside, the stars remain calm. Nothing in their light betrays the strangeness of one faint visitor. But in the silence of observatories, in the hum of computers, the anomaly grows. The first crack in the facade of certainty has appeared, and through it, speculation begins to leak. In the next chapter, we will follow that crack as it widens. Scientists will propose explanations, careful, cautious, rooted in natural law, but one by one those explanations will falter, the anomalies will multiply, and with them, the unease. For now, breathe deeply. Imagine the fragile fragments of Atlas gliding silently through the void, symmetrical, flickering, incomplete. Imagine the scientists watching, knowing that something here does not fit. Sleep if you wish. Or listen on, as we step from certainty into confusion. Science begins with caution. When something unusual appears in the sky, the first instinct is not to declare mystery, but to reach for the familiar. After all, most anomalies dissolve when examined more closely. A star that flickers strangely turns out to be an eclipsing binary. A planet that wanders unexpectedly proves to have a hidden companion tugging at it. Even the most peculiar behaviours usually bow in time to natural law. So when 3i Atlas began to reveal its peculiarities, its early fragmentation, its erratic brightness, its oddly neat debris, astronomers did not leap to exotic explanations. They began, as they always do, with the obvious. 3 main theories emerged, each rooted in the ordinary physics of comets, each offered as a possible key to the puzzle. The first was fragility. Perhaps Atlas was simply weak, more fragile than the comets we're used to. A comet that spends millions of years drifting between stars would be battered relentlessly by cosmic radiation. High-energy particles would slice into its surface, breaking down molecules, leaving it brittle and crumbly. Its interior, once tightly bound ices and dust, might become a patchwork of microfractures. By the time it reached our system, perhaps it was already on the edge of collapse, destined to unravel the moment the sun's warmth touched it. This explanation had elegance. It required no new physics, no strange assumptions. A weakened comet, fragile as an ancient relic, would naturally fall apart too soon. The erratic brightening could be explained by chunks breaking loose, exposing fresh ice that sublimated in sudden bursts. It seemed plausible, and many accepted it as the simplest answer. The second explanation focused on structure. Not all comets are solid monoliths. Some are rubble piles, loose aggregates of rock and ice clumped together by weak gravity. If Atlas was such a rubble pile, its disintegration might not be surprising. A gentle tidal tug from the sun, or even internal stresses from outgassing, could cause the loose pieces to drift apart. This might account for the oddly symmetrical fragments as the nucleus split along natural fault lines into comparably sized pieces. In this view, Atlas was not a single body at all, but a temporary coalition, one that had held together for eons but could not endure the sun's embrace. The third explanation leaned on chemistry. Comets are reservoirs of volatile ices: water, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia. Different ices sublimate at different temperatures, releasing gas at varying distances from the sun. If Atlas contained an unusual mix of volatiles, its outgassing could have been erratic. Perhaps patches of super volatile ice erupted suddenly, creating bursts of brightness that confused the light curves. Or perhaps its chemistry was simply different, reflecting the conditions of a star system unlike our own. These 3 explanations, fragility, structure, chemistry, formed the backbone of mainstream attempts to explain Atlas. Each was grounded in known science. Each had precedent in comets we had studied before. None required speculation beyond the ordinary. For a time, they brought comfort. It is reassuring to believe that the strange can be contained within the familiar. A fragile comet, a rubble pile, an odd mixture of ice. These are things we can understand. They fit into textbooks, into equations, into the quiet machinery of celestial mechanics. But the comfort was temporary. As more data arrived, cracks began to appear in these explanations. The fragility hypothesis could account for early breakup, but not for the neatness of the fragments. Rubble pile models could explain the breakup pattern, but not the erratic brightness. Chemistry could explain bursts of light, but not the missing emission lines. Each explanation solved one piece of the puzzle, but left others untouched. It was like trying to cover a bed with a blanket too small. Pull it over your shoulders and your feet are exposed. Pull it over your feet and your shoulders are cold. No single theory could stretch far enough to cover all the anomalies at once. Yet the effort was noble. Astronomers are guardians of reason. Their task is not to rush to wonder, but to test every natural explanation first, to strip away the illusions until only the unavoidable remains. With Atlas, they did exactly that. Papers were written, simulations run, data compared. Theories were proposed, debated, refined. The scientific process moved forward as it always has, cautious and deliberate. And still Atlas continued to resist. For you, listening now, imagine the scene. A scientist sitting late at night staring at a monitor glowing faintly in a darkened office. On the screen, a graph of brightness over time, jagged, irregular, defiant. The scientist tries one model, then another, adjusting parameters, running simulations. Each time the curves almost match, but not quite. The anomaly remains, a stubborn gap between expectation and reality. This is where science lives, in the gap. The space between what should be and what is. Most gaps close quickly, sealed by better data or refined models, but some remain open, and in those spaces speculation begins to stir. For now, though, the mainstream explanations held the floor. Fragile comet, rubble pile, exotic chemistry, each offered a path, however imperfect. Each gave scientists a way to speak about Atlas without invoking the extraordinary, and perhaps that is as it should be. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. To leap too quickly to wild conclusions is to betray the patience of science. Better to stay with the familiar, even when it feels unsatisfying, than to surrender to the lure of the unknown too soon. Outside, the sky does not care. The stars shine, the planets move. The visitor passes silently across the deep. It is we who struggle, we who demand explanations, we who feel unease when the universe refuses to fit our categories. Breathe slowly now. Let the mainstream explanations settle in your mind. Fragility, structure, chemistry. The comfortable trio of science at work. Imagine them as blankets draped over the mystery, softening its edges, offering reassurance. For a moment you can rest in the thought that Atlas is nothing more than a comet, fragile and fleeting, breaking apart as nature intended. But remember, the blanket does not quite cover the whole. In the next chapter, those gaps will widen, the explanations will falter, and through the cracks, darker possibilities will begin to show. Sleep if you wish, or follow further as we move from comfort into doubt. Science is a conversation between data and theory. Observations whisper their truths, and theory listens, shaping those whispers into stories that make sense. When the story fits, we feel calm. When it does not, unease creeps in. With 3 Atlas, the unease only deepened. 3 theories had been laid gently over its strangeness: fragility, structure, and chemistry. Each offered comfort: a fragile comet breaking apart, a rubble pile drifting into pieces, a cocktail of unusual ices sublimating in bursts. But the more carefully the data was examined, the more these comforts crumbled. Let's begin with fragility. The idea was simple. A body travelling millions of years through interstellar space must have been weakened. Cosmic rays would have riddled it with fractures. Micrometeoroid impacts would have scarred its surface. By the time it reached our sun, it was already a corpse waiting to fall apart. But if fragility alone were the cause, the breakup should have been chaotic. Pieces should have torn away in uneven fragments, scattering brightness across the sky like sparks from a dying ember. Yet the Hubble images told a different story. The fragments were strangely even in size, almost neat, almost measured. Instead of chaos, there was symmetry, as if the nucleus had not simply shattered, but had come apart along predetermined lines, like a stone splitting along its grain. Fragility did not explain this order. It explained collapse, yes, but not the eerie tidiness of the collapse we observed. Next came structure. Perhaps Atlas was a rubble pile, loosely bound, destined to unravel. But rubble pile comets in our own system, when they disintegrate, leave signatures we know well: irregular debris, rapid fading, unpredictable patterns of dust. Atlas, again, refused to conform. Its light curve did not show the jagged randomness of a collapsing heap. Instead, it flickered in puzzling rhythms, brightening here, dimming there, as though guided by processes we could not see. The rubble pile model solved one problem, but introduced another. Why would a rubble pile produce such oddly consistent brightness shifts? Why would the fragments resemble siblings rather than orphans? Then chemistry. This was perhaps the most promising of the three. If Atlas contained exotic ices, different from those common in our own system, its outgassing might behave unpredictably. Super volatile ices could burst forth in sudden flares, causing the irregular light. But spectroscopy, the art of dissecting light to reveal composition, told a stubborn truth. The signatures of exotic volatiles were faint or absent. The usual suspects, water and carbon compounds, were there, but weaker than expected. What was missing was as important as what was present. The chemistry seemed incomplete, impoverished, as though Atlas carried only part of the recipe. Instead of strangeness explained, we were left with strangeness multiplied. Each theory stumbled on the same rock. None could explain all the anomalies at once. Fragility accounted for early breakup, but not symmetry. Structure explained symmetry, but not the erratic brightness. Chemistry explained bursts of light, but not the missing lines. Every time astronomers thought they had a handle, the object slipped away like water between fingers. The unease grew. In private conversations, in the margins of conference talks, astronomers began to admit their frustration. The explanations were too narrow, the puzzle too broad. Perhaps Atlas was not one mystery, but several, overlapping, compounding, conspiring to resist closure. Or perhaps, and this was the whisper no one wanted to say aloud, perhaps the assumptions themselves were wrong. What if Atlas was not a comet in the ordinary sense? What if calling it a comet was already a mistake? The thought was dangerous, not because it was irrational, but because it opened doors that science prefers to keep shut until forced. To question the classification of Atlas was to step beyond the safety of established categories into the wilderness where speculation dwells. But before that step could be taken, the mainstream explanations had to be tested to exhaustion. And so they were. Papers emerged, models were run, each one finding pieces of truth but none the whole. Imagine the frustration. An astronomer, late at night, comparing data sets from different observatories. One shows brightness rising sharply, another shows it levelling off. One suggests fragments spreading, another suggests fragments clinging. The story refuses to cohere. The numbers, usually obedient, now mock. This is where the debunking becomes more than technical. It becomes philosophical. If each explanation fails, not because it is wrong, but because it is incomplete, what does that say about our understanding? Are we missing a variable, a principle, or is the object itself a messenger of something our categories cannot hold? It is here that the ghost of ʻOumuamua returns. With ʻOumuamua too, explanations had failed. Outgassing too faint to see, yet acceleration too large to ignore. Shapes inferred but never confirmed. Theories stacked but never satisfied. The same pattern was repeating with Atlas. A visitor arrives, science explains, explanations fail, and the visitor departs, leaving behind a residue of unease. This repetition unsettled many. Once may be anomaly, twice coincidence. But thrice, 3 interstellar objects, 3 failures of neat explanation arriving in rapid succession. It was as though the universe were reminding us, insistently, that our understanding is not enough. For you, listening in the stillness, perhaps this feels abstract, removed. But there is a weight in these failures, a quiet dread. Science is our lantern against the dark. When the lantern flickers, shadows gather. The anomalies of Atlas are shadows, not dangerous, not immediate, but whispering of things beyond our grasp. Consider again the fragments of Atlas. Imagine them drifting apart, symmetrical even, like beads of glass floating in the void. Ask yourself, is this the behavior of a natural body, or is it something else, some process not yet imagined? Science says fragility, structure, chemistry, but the images, the data, the stubbornness of the anomaly say otherwise. Debunking does not mean discarding. Fragility remains true in part, structure remains plausible in part, chemistry remains suggestive in part. But together they fail, and in that failure, speculation is born. But before speculation there is calm, a reset, a reminder of our place. Because without perspective, the mind can spiral into fear. Without perspective, anomalies become monsters. So breathe now. Imagine the night sky above you, serene, vast, unchanged. stars older than civilizations, galaxies like dust. Against that backdrop, the puzzle of Atlas is small, almost gentle. It is not a threat. It is an invitation to wonder, to humility, to curiosity. The debunking leaves us empty-handed, but emptiness is fertile ground. It is the silence before the next note, the pause before the next word. And in that silence, we are ready for the turn. In the next part, we will take that breath. We will step back from the anomalies, from the failure of explanations, and simply rest in the cosmos. A calm reset, a lull before speculation. For even mysteries need quiet. Sleep if you wish, or drift with me into the pause as the story deepens. The night sky is patient. It does not argue, it does not rush, it does not demand conclusions. It simply is. Vast, ancient, serene. When our minds grow restless with anomalies, when theories collapse and data refuses to fit, there is solace in looking upward, in remembering that the sky remains unchanged, whether we understand it or not. Imagine yourself outside now, perhaps on a balcony, perhaps in a quiet field, perhaps only in the theatre of your imagination. The air is cool. The world around you has gone still, the sounds of human life fading into distance. Above, the dome of the heavens stretches endlessly, a velvet expanse scattered with points of light. The Milky Way arches overhead, a river of stars so dense it resembles mist. Though each speck is a sun, each sun a world, each world perhaps carrying secrets of its own, you breathe slowly, deeply. The strangeness of Atlas, the failed explanations, the uneasy anomalies, they belong to the minds of astronomers, to the graphs and data sheets. Out here, under the open night, all of that complexity dissolves. What remains is beauty. The simple, ineffable beauty of a sky that has looked the same to every generation before you. Lift your eyes to Orion. His belt of 3 stars, perfectly aligned, has guided sailors, storytellers, and wanderers for millennia. To the south, Sirius blazes, the brightest star in our sky, twice as massive as our sun, glowing blue-white with the heat of 25 solar luminosities. To the north, the familiar constellations wheel slowly with the seasons. Polaris, the North Star, steady, guiding, faithful. Cassiopeia, the Queen, tilted on her throne of 5 stars. Now imagine stretching your vision farther, beyond what your eyes can see. The Andromeda galaxy hangs faintly as a smudge, though in truth it is a sprawling island of 1 trillion stars. Light from Andromeda began its journey toward us 2 million years ago, when the first humans were only beginning to walk upright on the plains of Africa. Tonight that light completes its journey, falls softly on your eye, and you are connected to a past so ancient it defies comprehension. The stillness is profound. Here, the scale of the universe overwhelms the smallness of our questions. Atlas, with all its puzzles and contradictions, is only a fragment, a single mote gliding briefly through our solar system. Against the backdrop of galaxies, its mystery is small, and yet it is that very smallness that gives it meaning. For it reminds us that the universe is alive with motion, that not all is static, that fragments wander, collide, pass, whispering stories we are only beginning to learn. As you breathe, notice how your body responds to this perspective. Shoulders ease, heart slows. The restless chatter of the mind begins to quiet. The anomalies do not vanish, but they soften. They are placed within the larger frame, a frame in which stars are born and die, in which galaxies spin for billions of years, in which space is both silent and infinite. Look up at the moon. Its pale light, reflected sunlight, washes the night in silver. Craters mark its surface, scars of ancient collisions. To our eyes it is a companion, familiar and close. To Atlas it would have been nothing more than another pale pebble circling Earth, insignificant in its hyperbolic passage. That difference in perspective is humbling. What is vast to us is trivial to the traveller. What is intimate to us is invisible to the cosmos. And yet, in this asymmetry, there is comfort. We do not need to be the centre. We do not need every answer. We can rest in the knowledge that the universe is vaster than us, and that its mysteries will always outnumber our explanations. Let your thoughts drift outward, past the constellations, past the Milky Way, into the great darkness between galaxies. Astronomers call it intergalactic space, but the name barely captures its enormity. Here, distances stretch so wide that even light itself seems slow. A beam of light leaving one galaxy may take billions of years to reach another. Imagine drifting there. In that silence, stars reduced to pinpricks, galaxies like lanterns scattered across the black. You would be surrounded not by noise, not by confusion, but by stillness. A stillness so deep it hums, a silence so profound it feels alive. This is the silence Atlas knew for most of its life. Before it brushed against our sun, before our telescopes caught its light, it drifted through that interstellar dark, untouched, unmeasured, unseen. For millions of years it knew only the stillness between stars. Tonight, as you rest, you too can taste a fraction of that stillness. Pause. Breathe. Feel the rhythm of your breath matching the rhythm of the cosmos. Slow, steady, infinite. Inhale as galaxies inhale starbirth. Exhale as stars exhale light. You are small, yes, but not separate. You are woven into the same fabric, made of the same atoms, born from the same stellar furnaces. The universe is vast, but it is also intimate. You carry its story in your very cells. The calm reset is not an escape from mystery, but a way to live with it. To accept that the unknown does not have to be feared, but can be cherished. Atlas may remain unexplained, its anomalies unresolved, its story incomplete. That incompleteness is not a failure, but a gift. For it reminds us that discovery is not about final answers, but about wonder. And so you lie under the stars or imagine yourself there and let the night hold you. The sky asks nothing of you but your attention. The cosmos does not demand solutions. It offers only presence, light, and silence. In that silence, sleep may come, or curiosity may stir. If you choose to stay awake to follow the story further, then know that we are about to cross a threshold. We have rested in calm, set aside our need for certainty. From here, we will step into speculation. We will leave the safety of science and ask questions that science alone cannot answer. Questions about intelligence, about civilizations, about what it means when the universe sends us visitors we cannot explain. But not yet. For now, the stars are enough. The night is enough. Your breath is enough. Rest in the stillness between stars where all mysteries sleep, waiting to be dreamed. There comes a moment, in every mystery, when the language of science begins to falter. Up to now, we have walked carefully within its boundaries. We spoke of orbital elements, brightness curves, chemical spectra. We traced theories of fragility, rubble piles, exotic chemistry. Each theory stretched to cover some part of the puzzle, and each one tore at the seams. Now the blanket of science no longer reaches. We find ourselves staring into gaps, and the gaps stare back. Astronomy is no stranger to mystery. For centuries, astronomers have made peace with the unknown. Before Neptune was discovered, its presence was inferred from the wobbles of Uranus. Before galaxies were recognized as vast star islands, they were faint spiral nebulae in telescopes too small to reveal their truth. Unknowns are natural. They are the soil of discovery. But usually the unknowns shrink with time. More data, better instruments, refined models, and the fog clears. With Atlas, as with ʻOumuamua before it, the fog thickened instead. Each observation clarified one detail only to obscure another. The closer astronomers looked, the less sense it made. The visitor was leaving, fragmenting, vanishing into dust, and yet the mystery was deepening. We had expected closure. We received only contradiction. At this point, some scientists fold their arms and wait. They accept that the dataset is incomplete, that conclusions cannot yet be drawn. They prefer silence to speculation. But others, those drawn to the wider implications, begin to ask the questions that hover at the edges of science. Questions that are not yet data, not yet proof, but possibilities. This is the pivot. From here, we must leave the safety of certainty and enter a landscape where reason is joined by imagination. A landscape where what is gives way to what if. What if Atlas was not just fragile but constructed? What if its symmetry was not coincidence, but intention? What if its fragments were not mere shards but components, designed to separate in a pattern we cannot yet decipher? These questions may sound wild, even reckless, but they are not unscientific. They are speculative. Yes, But speculation is not the enemy of science. It is its companion, its shadow, its whisper of what might lie ahead. Every great leap in understanding began first as speculation. What if the Earth moves around the Sun? What if invisible forces pull masses together? What if light is both wave and particle? To speculate is to sketch the outlines of what data cannot yet fill, and so, with Atlas, the whispers begin. Perhaps it is nothing but a fragile comet dissolving too soon, but perhaps it is not, perhaps there is more. Pause now, and imagine the scene. A small group of astronomers gathered in quiet conversation after a conference talk. The official presentation is over, the slides have been shown. But afterward, in the dim corridor, the whispers rise. The fragments were too even, one says. The brightness curves too strange, another replies. It reminds me of ʻOumuamua, says a third. And then the silence hangs, the silence of words unsaid. What if this is not natural? Speculation does not mean belief. To speculate is not to conclude, but to open doors. Most doors lead nowhere, but sometimes one door reveals a new world. With Atlas, the doors are many. Each anomaly is a keyhole inviting us to peer through. One door opens to technology. What if Atlas is not a comet at all, but debris of something engineered? A probe, a fragment, a sail torn loose from a larger craft. The symmetry of its fragments could hint at design. The missing chemistry could be the absence of natural ices, stripped away long ago, leaving behind only husks. The erratic brightness could be reflections from surfaces not made of dust, but of something we do not yet understand. Another door opens to archaeology. What if Atlas is ancient, unimaginably ancient? A relic of a civilization long extinct, drifting between stars for eons before stumbling into our system. Its fragility could be the weakness of age, its missing chemistry the erosion of time, its disintegration not failure, but the natural fate of something that has wandered too long. In this view, Atlas is not a messenger of the living, but the fossil of the dead. Still another door opens to cosmic ecology. What if objects like Atlas are not rare at all, but common? What if every star system sheds fragments, filling the galaxy with a slow rain of debris? Perhaps interstellar visitors are the seeds of panspermia, carriers of life's ingredients. Perhaps Atlas carried more than dust and ice. Perhaps in its heart it once sheltered spores or molecules, drifting silently until chance brought them here. These are doors, not conclusions. Each is a path into speculation. None can yet be proven. And yet, to walk these paths, even in thought, is to honour the mystery. For mysteries are not solved by silence alone. They are solved by daring to imagine. Here, at the pivot, we must acknowledge a deeper truth. The universe is not obliged to make sense to us. It is vast, indifferent, older than our species, older than our world. If Atlas resists explanation, perhaps that is because our tools, our categories, our minds are not yet ready. Perhaps the mystery is not a failure of the comet, but a measure of our limits. And so, we pause again. Look up at the stars. They are steady, ancient, patient. They burn regardless of our questions. Atlas is gone now, disintegrated into dust, fragments lost to the void. What remains is not the object itself, but the shadow of its puzzle. That shadow is enough to draw us onward. From here we will speculate more boldly. We will ask not only what Atlas is, but what it might mean. If it were a probe, what civilization could have built it? If it were a relic, what does that say about the lifespans of worlds beyond our own? If it were a seed, what might it carry across the stars? But that is for the chapters to come. Tonight, in this moment, we stand on the edge. Behind us, the firm ground of science. Ahead of us, the dark forest of speculation. To step forward is to leave certainty behind, to accept that wonder will guide us where data cannot. Breathe slowly. Let the calm of the night hold you. The pivot has come. From now on, the story is no longer just about what we know, but about what we dare to imagine. When an object defies our expectations, we first ask whether we have misunderstood nature. But if nature fails to provide an answer, another possibility arises, that what we are observing is not entirely natural. With ʻOumuamua, this possibility entered mainstream discourse, however reluctantly. Its unexplained acceleration, its lack of visible outgassing, its peculiar shape. These led some to wonder if it might be an artificial probe, perhaps a thin light sail drifting through interstellar space. Most scientists recoiled from the idea, but the seed was planted. Now, with Atlas, the same seed begins to stir. Its anomalies, the premature breakup, the symmetrical fragments, the erratic brightness, invite the same whisper. What if it is not just a comet? The first speculation is the simplest. Debris. Perhaps Atlas is the wreckage of something once greater. Imagine a spacecraft launched eons ago from a distant system, designed to explore or to signal. Over time, it breaks down. Micrometeoroid impacts scar its frame. Cosmic radiation corrodes its materials. Eventually it loses coherence, drifting as shards and panels through the galaxy. One such fragment, weakened by ages of travel, enters our solar system and falls apart under the heat of our sun. To us it looks like a fragile comet, but in truth it is debris. Debris has its own story. If Atlas was such a fragment, it implies that elsewhere, far beyond the reach of our telescopes, there are builders, a civilization capable of sending machines across interstellar distances. Perhaps they're gone, long extinct, their works decaying quietly in the dark, or perhaps they still endure, their fragments scattered as testimony to their reach. Another speculation is more deliberate. A probe. What if Atlas was not debris, not a ruin, but an artifact with purpose? Its breakup could have been intentional, a designed sequence rather than a failure. The fragments, neat and symmetrical, might have been components, released to scatter and perform tasks unknown to us. The erratic brightness might not have been gas flaring, but reflections of surfaces angled deliberately, catching sunlight like signals. Imagine, for a moment, a civilization far older than ours. To them, sending probes across the galaxy is not extraordinary. It is routine as we send satellites to orbit Earth. They design their machines not to last years, but millions of years. They make them small, numerous, resilient in their own way. Over time, some fail, some succeed. A fraction of these probes drift into our solar system. We see them as faint comets. We measure their light and puzzle at their behavior, and we do not recognize them for what they are. Skeptics will say, this is unnecessary. A comet explains the data well enough. To leap to probes is to indulge in fantasy. But consider this. If a probe did enter our system, if alien technology did drift past us, would we recognize it? Or would we classify it as a comet, a rock, a fragment, and move on? How much of what we dismiss as natural could in truth be otherwise? Atlas in this frame becomes not just an object but a question. Not what is it made of, but who, if anyone, made it. There are precedents in our own history. Consider Voyager 1 and 2, now drifting beyond the heliosphere. To us they are technological marvels, carrying plaques and golden records, testaments of our existence. But 1,000,000 years from now, if another civilization were to find their remains, what would they see? The plating corroded, the electronics long dead, the surfaces scarred. They might mistake them for asteroids or icy fragments. Only with careful attention would they notice the symmetry, the geometry, the signs of design. Atlas could be another Voyager, not ours, but someone else's. A message not written for us, but stumbled upon by chance. Its breakup might have been the last gasp of a machine too old to endure, or the deliberate scattering of modules we cannot detect. Speculation also turns to sails. ʻOumuamua sparked discussion of light sails, thin sheets propelled by starlight, drifting across interstellar distances without fuel. If Atlas were once such a sail, perhaps its breakup was the unravelling of fabric, torn by radiation, frayed by time. The fragments, neat and even, could have been folds or sections peeling away. Its erratic brightness could have been reflections from thin, angled surfaces. We assumed comet. Perhaps it was cloth. But there is another, darker speculation: camouflage. What if probes are designed to resemble comets? To hide among the countless natural bodies, indistinguishable except to the trained eye. A civilization that feared discovery might seed the galaxy with machines disguised as harmless debris, knowing that most observers would dismiss them as comets. Only anomalies would betray their nature, and even then, cautious scientists might choose the safety of natural explanations. If so, Atlas may have been exactly what it appeared, and yet not. These thoughts are unsettling. To imagine Atlas as probe or debris is to accept that the galaxy may already be filled with technology, drifting quietly, unnoticed. That interstellar space may be less empty than it seems. That the first signs of other civilizations may not come in the form of radio signals or spectacular encounters, but in fragile, flickering visitors we barely recognize before they vanish. Pause here and breathe. The thought can be overwhelming, but it is also humbling. If Atlas were debris or probe, it means we are not alone, not in principle, but in practice. It means we are already brushing against the works of others, even if we cannot prove it. It means the silence of the cosmos is not silence at all, but a language we do not yet understand. For now, science will not claim this. Officially, Atlas is a comet, fragile, interstellar, fleeting. That is the safest answer. But in the quiet spaces of imagination, the possibility lingers. Probe, debris, artifact. We cannot say no. We can only say not yet. As you rest beneath the stars, consider the fragility of our own works. Satellites orbit above us, thin and small compared to the Earth. Spacecraft drift outward, carrying our signatures. One day they too will be debris. One day they too may be mistaken for rocks. If others look at them, they may puzzle as we puzzle now. In this, Atlas holds up a mirror. It is not just a visitor from elsewhere, but a reflection of what we ourselves may become. Sleep if you wish, or drift further with me, for the next question is not only what Atlas might be, but who might have sent it, and what kind of civilization could scatter such fragments across the stars. To imagine Atlas as more than a comet is to invite a deeper question. What kind of civilization could have built it? This is no small step. It stretches us from the comfort of physics into the vertigo of possibility. Yet it is a step worth taking, for if Atlas were debris or probe, then it did not appear by accident. It was made, and makers imply civilizations. Civilizations are measured not only by their art, or their language, or their philosophies, but by their mastery of energy. This idea was formalized by the Soviet astronomer Nikolai Kardashev, who in 1964 proposed a scale to classify civilizations by the power they harness. Type 1 civilizations master the energy of their home planet. Type 2 civilizations control the energy of their star, perhaps by building vast structures like Dyson spheres. Type 3 civilizations command the energy of their entire galaxy. Where does humanity fall? At present, we are not even fully Type 1. We harness wind, water, coal, oil, nuclear fire, but we have not yet mastered all the energy available on Earth. We are children in the cosmic hierarchy. To imagine civilizations capable of sending probes across interstellar distances is to imagine those who are, at the very least, far ahead of us. If Atlas were a probe, it may have been launched by a Type 1 civilization, only slightly ahead of us. After all, even with our limited technology, we have already sent Voyager 1 and 2 into interstellar space. If given time, humanity will send more. Faster craft, smarter craft, perhaps sails driven by lasers or sunlight. A distant observer, 1,000,000 years from now, might mistake one of our probes for a natural body. If we can do it, why not others? But there is a deeper possibility. That Atlas was not the work of a civilization slightly ahead, but vastly ahead. A Type 2 or even Type 3 society could scatter probes like seeds across the galaxy, numbering not in dozens but in millions. Such probes would be designed not for years or centuries, but for geological timescales, drifting for millions of years before encountering a star system. To us, Atlas was a fleeting visitor. To them, it may have been one of countless messengers, a single thread in a vast web of exploration. Consider the timescales involved. Our species, Homo sapiens, is less than 300,000 years old. Our recorded history spans barely 5,000 years. Our radio transmissions, the signals by which another civilization might notice us, have been leaking into space for just over a century, and yet, in that tiny blink, we have already left artifacts drifting into interstellar space. Multiply that blink by 1,000, by 1,000,000, and imagine what another species might achieve. The thought is dizzying. 1,000,000 years is enough time for a civilization to rise, fall, and rise again countless times. Enough time to seed probes across the galaxy. Enough time to construct networks of machines that monitor, explore, or simply drift. If Atlas were one of these, then we're not encountering a lone traveller. We're brushing against the edge of a great invisible architecture, a structure too vast for us to see in full. What kind of minds would build such things? We imagine them as alien, yes, but also as practical. To survive for millions of years, a civilization must master patience, sustainability, endurance. Their probes would not be desperate flares, but quiet, steady instruments designed to last. They would not seek immediate answers, but long-term presence. They would be gardeners of the galaxy, scattering seeds and letting them drift, waiting eons for returns. And what of intention? Was Atlas accidental or purposeful? If debris, then perhaps it was accidental, a shard broken loose, wandering aimlessly. But if probe, then purpose lurks within. Was it to observe, to signal, to test? Or was it simply to exist as a marker of presence, a flag planted in the silence of space? Here we must face the unsettling truth. Intention is invisible. We cannot read the minds of makers from the fragments of their work. When archaeologists dig up shards of pottery, they see patterns of culture, but not the full lives of those who shaped them. With Atlas, if it were a shard, we see only brightness and breakup, fragments and dust. We cannot know the hands that set it in motion, yet imagination fills the gaps. Some suggest probes might be designed to self-replicate, von Neumann machines, consuming matter, building copies, spreading exponentially until the galaxy is filled. If so, then Atlas could be a failed copy, a broken machine, its function lost. Others suggest probes might be passive, designed only to drift and be noticed, a silent hello from afar. If so, Atlas may have fulfilled its purpose the moment we observed it, the moment we puzzled, the moment we asked, "Are we alone?" Pause now and breathe. The speculation is vast, but the stars are steady. Above you tonight countless suns burn, each perhaps with its own worlds, its own civilizations, its own probes. Our telescopes see only the brightest, the largest. The smaller fragments, the faint visitors, pass mostly unseen. Atlas was one of the few we caught. How many more drifted by unnoticed? How many more will come? The implications ripple outward. If probes drift between stars, then the galaxy is not empty. It is not silent. It is threaded with the works of others, waiting in the dark. If debris wanders, then civilizations may have risen and fallen countless times, leaving relics scattered across the void. If Atlas is a fragment of that great tapestry, then every interstellar object is not just rock or ice, but potential archaeology, potential testimony. And what of us? To encounter Atlas is to glimpse our own future. One day our probes too will drift as debris, our signals too will fade, our traces will cross star systems whose inhabitants may or may not notice. Atlas may be foreign, but it is also familiar. It shows us not only the possibility of others, but the inevitability of our own dispersal. We stand at the beginning of that path. Tonight our reach is short, our lantern dim, but already we imagine sails, beams, swarms, machines that could last longer than civilizations themselves. In time, fragments of Earth will wander the galaxy, and perhaps, one day, they will be mistaken for comets, flickering oddly, breaking apart too soon, leaving behind anomalies that puzzle distant astronomers. If Atlas was probe or debris, it is also mirror. It reflects what we may become, fragile, fleeting, and yet enduring in the most unlikely way, by drifting, by being noticed, by raising questions we cannot yet answer. Sleep if you wish, or drift with me further. For the next step is to ask not only what kind of civilization could build Atlas, but what it means if civilizations leave ruins behind. What it means if the galaxy is filled not with living voices, but with echoes of the dead. When archaeologists walk through a ruin on Earth, they are surrounded by fragments. A broken column, a shard of pottery, a collapsed wall. These remnants are mute, but they speak through context. They tell us that once people lived here, they built, they thrived, they fell. The ruins are not the civilization itself, but its ghost. Now extend that idea outward, far beyond the bounds of Earth. What would it mean if Three-Eye Atlas were not a probe of the living, but a ruin of the dead? A fragment of a civilization long extinct, drifting quietly between stars, unnoticed for millions of years until it wandered into our solar system. The thought is haunting. It recast Atlas not as a message, but as a tombstone, a silent gravestone bearing no inscription, no language, only its existence. And like any gravestone it says, they were here. Civilizations we know are fragile. On Earth, Empires have risen and collapsed. Great cities have flourished, only to be swallowed by desert sands or jungle vines. History is littered with ruins. If humanity in its infancy is so easily fractured, why should we expect more permanence from others? Perhaps the galaxy is not empty because civilizations have never arisen, but because they do not endure. They rise, they scatter fragments, they vanish. And what remains are objects like Atlas, drifting relics stripped of function, carrying only the suggestion of a past. Think of Voyager 1. It drifts now beyond the heliosphere, carrying its golden record. To us, it is a proud envoy of Earth, still alive, still transmitting faint signals. But in 1,000,000 years, its instruments will be dead. Its plating will be scarred. Its antenna will be silent. It will still drift, but as debris. If another civilization encounters it then, they will not hear our voices. They will only see a silent ruin, a shard of a forgotten people. Perhaps Atlas is another Voyager, but older, unimaginably older. Perhaps it was once a functioning probe, carrying messages, recording data, sending signals. But its makers are gone, erased by time. Its purpose is gone, eroded by age. Only the shell remains, brittle, fragmenting, mistaken by us for a comet. Cosmic archaeology asks us to see the galaxy as a ruin field. Not a vibrant web of civilizations in constant contact, but a graveyard. Each star system might hold its own ruins. Collapsed machines, dead probes, fragments of technology mistaken for natural rock. Interstellar space might be littered with relics, drifting unmarked. We rarely notice them, because we do not expect to. When we do, as with ʻOumuamua or Atlas, we reach for natural explanations. To imagine otherwise is too heavy, too vast. But the ruins whisper nonetheless. Their silence is eloquent, for they tell us that civilizations may not last. They tell us that the great filter, that mysterious barrier that may prevent life from becoming widespread, might not lie ahead of us, but behind others. That the galaxy has seen civilizations rise and fall and scatter their relics into the dark. Pause here and imagine Atlas differently. Not as ice and dust, but as architecture. See its fragments not as cometary shards, but as panels, once part of a structure. Picture it not as fragile rubble, but as the eroded bones of a machine. Its symmetry, its neatness, becomes the echo of design. Its premature breakup, the final collapse of something long dead. Cosmic archaeology is not only about objects, but about meaning. To find a ruin is to glimpse mortality. If Atlas was such a ruin, what does it tell us about ourselves? That we too will leave relics, that we too may not endure. Our cities, our satellites, our probes. They will scatter, drift, crumble. One day humanity itself may be gone, but the ruins of our presence will remain, mute in the silence of space. And yet, there is a strange comfort in that. Ruins are loss, yes, but they are also continuity. They remind us that even when civilizations end, their traces linger. To find Atlas as ruin is to find proof that others were here, that the universe has been inhabited before, that we are not the first to wonder, to build, to reach. Consider the possibility that Atlas is not unique, that every interstellar object we encounter carries a chance of being a ruin. ʻOumuamua, too smooth, too strange. Borisov, too ordinary but perhaps deceptive. Atlas, too fragile, too symmetrical. Each could be a shard. Each could be archaeology, if only we had the tools to see it. What tools would cosmic archaeologists need? Not trowels or brushes, but telescopes, probes, spectrographs. We would need to look not only for natural signatures, but for patterns of design, for geometries that nature does not make, for materials that do not belong. Already whispers of this approach exist. Scientists scan exoplanet atmospheres not only for oxygen, but for signs of pollution, chlorofluorocarbons, industrial fingerprints. Others suggest scanning the spectra of interstellar objects for metals too pure, too refined. Perhaps the next Atlas will yield such clues. Perhaps the ruins will speak more clearly. But Atlas itself has spoken only faintly. It came, it puzzled, it broke apart, it left. We are left with fragments of data and the unsettling possibility that it was not comet, not probe, but ruin. A relic of a civilization whose name we will never know, whose worlds we will never see, whose time has long passed. Breathe deeply now. Let that thought settle, not as fear, but as perspective. To live in a galaxy of ruins is to live in a galaxy that has been alive. It is to know that others have walked before us, even if they are gone. It is to accept that we are part of a continuum, not an exception. Cosmic archaeology reframes the mystery. It is no longer what is Atlas, but what stories do ruins tell? The answer is humility. They tell us we are temporary. They tell us the galaxy is older, busier, sadder than we imagine. They tell us that silence is not emptiness, but aftermath. And so, as you listen, drifting perhaps towards sleep, picture Atlas as a ruin tumbling through the dark. Picture yourself as the archaeologist, finding it, puzzling over it, wondering about its makers. Know that in this wonder you share a kinship with them, whoever they were. For they too must have wondered. They too must have looked at the stars and asked if they were alone. The ruin of Atlas may be mute, but your imagination gives it voice. And in that voice is the echo of civilizations beyond the horizon, long gone, but still present in fragments of dust. Sleep now, or follow further. For in the next chapter we will not only dwell on ruins, but connect the dots, how the anomalies of Atlas align more closely with speculation than with natural law, and what that alignment means for us. The mind is a pattern seeker. When fragments lie scattered across the floor, we cannot help but try to arrange them, to see an image, to find the outline of meaning. With 3 Atlas, the fragments are both literal and metaphorical, shards of a disintegrating nucleus and shards of incomplete data. Alone, each anomaly might be dismissed. Together, they invite arrangement. Together, they begin to whisper of something more. Let us lay out the fragments. First, the early disintegration. Atlas broke apart before it should have, crumbling under solar warmth that many comets survive. A body hardened by millions of years of interstellar travel ought to have been robust. Instead, it came undone like paper in flame. Second, the symmetry of the fragments. Not a chaotic spray of dust, but multiple pieces of nearly even size drifting in strange coordination. The Hubble images captured them like pearls on a string, unsettlingly neat. Third, the erratic light curves. Atlas brightened too quickly, then dimmed, then flared again. Its brightness did not follow the smooth mathematical predictions of outgassing. Instead, it flickered like a candle caught in unseen winds. Fourth, the missing chemistry. Spectra revealed dust, yes, but also absences. Lines we expected were faint or gone. The composition seemed incomplete, as though Atlas carried only a partial recipe for a comet's glow. Fifth, the context. ʻOumuamua with its unexplained acceleration. Borisov, too ordinary to be ignored. Atlas, fragile and contradictory. 3 interstellar visitors in a short span, 3 puzzles in sequence. Each alone might be a footnote. Together they form a pattern, not proof, but suggestion. Not certainty, but a shadow of coherence. And when the mind arranges them, a picture begins to form, one that looks less like nature's chaos and more like intention, or at least strangeness beyond our categories. The scientist resists this temptation. Patterns are seductive. We find faces in clouds, animals in stars, conspiracies and coincidences. To connect dots too quickly is to risk illusion. But what if the illusion is truth glimpsed early? What if the pattern is real, waiting to be traced? Consider the early disintegration and the neat fragments together. A natural comet might crumble, but not so tidily. Unless, of course, it was not a monolith to begin with. Unless it was built of modules, sections, components designed to separate. Then, what looks like collapse could also be release. The fragments were not failure, but function. Consider the erratic light curves alongside the missing chemistry. A natural comet glows when volatiles sublimate. But if the chemistry is incomplete, if the outgassing is insufficient, then why the flicker? Unless the flicker was not outgassing at all, but reflection. Light bouncing from surfaces, angled, irregular, moving in ways dust cannot. Surfaces that might be flat, metallic, manufactured. And consider the context. 3 visitors in quick succession, each strange in its own way. Statistically, we should not have been so fortunate or so unlucky to encounter anomalies so often, so soon. Unless we are not encountering chance at all, but the edge of a larger pattern, a stream of fragments, natural or otherwise, passing through our region of space. A current in the galactic sea. When you connect the dots this way, the picture grows unsettling. Atlas begins to look less like a comet and more like debris, probe or ruin. The anomalies cease to be contradictions and instead become signatures, the fingerprints of design or the scars of time. But connecting the dots does not give us certainty. It only gives a story. And stories can mislead. Perhaps Atlas is natural, and our pattern-seeking minds are weaving illusions. Perhaps the fragments were symmetrical by chance, the brightness erratic because of unseen dust jets, the chemistry odd because of distance and measurement error. Skeptics remind us the simplest explanation is usually the best. But what if the simplest explanation fails? What if the simple answers cannot cover the whole? Then the more complex story, however unsettling, becomes the most honest. Pause here, and breathe. You may feel the weight of these connections, the tug of the speculative net tightening around the fragments. The mind resists, and yet it is drawn. For in these connections there is not only mystery but wonder. Connecting the dots also connects us to the wider cosmos. If Atlas is probe or debris, then others exist. If Atlas is ruin, then ruins are scattered everywhere. If Atlas is natural but strange, then strangeness itself is common, a law of the universe. In every case, the pattern expands our sense of reality. The dots do not only form a picture of Atlas, they form a picture of the galaxy itself, busy, restless, alive with more than we expect. Astronomy is full of such moments. Pulsars were once thought to be artificial, their regular signals dubbed LGM, little green men, before we understood them as neutron stars. Quasars baffled astronomers until their distance and power were grasped. Each anomaly begins as a dot. Each dot tempts us to connect. Sometimes we are wrong, sometimes we are right. But always the act of connecting deepens the mystery first, before it resolves. With Atlas, resolution never came. Its fragments faded, its dust dispersed, its light curves ended. It left behind only the dots. To connect them is all we can do now. And when we do, the pattern that emerges points not to comfort, but to unease. A whisper that this was not only comet, not only chance, that something more moved through our sky, if only for a moment. And so, as you lie beneath the stars or drift towards sleep, imagine the dots yourself. Picture them as light scattered across darkness, each anomaly a point glowing faintly. Now, draw lines between them. See what shape emerges. Perhaps you see a comet still, natural, fragile, ordinary. Or perhaps you see a machine, a ruin, a shard of civilization. Perhaps the shape is unclear, and that is the point. The pattern is not finished. The galaxy is still drawing. Connecting the dots does not end the story. It begins the next. For the next dots lead us toward darker questions. What if probes are scouts? What if ruins are warnings? What if patterns themselves are signals waiting for us to see them? Sleep if you wish, and let the pattern dissolve into dreams. Or follow me onward into the next chapter, where speculation turns to shadow, where we ask if Atlas was not only a visitor, but a trigger, a sign in the dark forest of the galaxy. Imagine a forest at night. You're walking through it, quiet, cautious. Around you, unseen creatures move. Some are harmless, some are dangerous, some are indifferent. You cannot tell which is which. In such a forest, survival depends on silence. To reveal yourself is to risk being noticed by something that may not wish you well. This image, simple and haunting, was described by the science fiction author Liu Cixin as the dark forest hypothesis. It proposes that the galaxy is like that forest. Civilizations exist, scattered among the stars, but each one is silent, cautious, afraid. For to shout into the darkness is to risk being heard, and in a galaxy where the motives of others are unknowable, silence is safety. Now consider 3i Atlas through this lens. What if it was not merely a fragment, not merely debris, but a trigger? What if its presence in our system was not accidental, but part of a chain of signals, a motion in the dark forest that could draw attention? The unsettling possibility is this. Atlas was noticed not only by us but by others. Its path through our system may have been marked, its flare of dust and light a beacon visible to any watching. In detecting it, in broadcasting our curiosity, in turning our telescopes and instruments toward it, we may have revealed ourselves as well. We may have answered a signal we did not know was sent. Pause here and let the thought settle. The very act of observation, so innocent, so natural to science, could itself be a reply. In the dark forest, to look is to reveal that you are awake. To measure is to reveal that you are intelligent. To speculate is to reveal that you are vulnerable. What if Atlas was a scout? A small, fragile probe sent not to communicate but to detect. Its purpose not to announce but to listen. Passing through a system, it might measure emissions, catalogue signals, note the presence of watchers. Its fragmentation could even have been the release of devices, small, invisible, drifting silently in the void, left behind like traps or markers. We do not see them, but perhaps they see us, or perhaps Atlas was bait, a lure designed to draw attention. By focusing on it, by broadcasting radar pings, by studying its light obsessively, we have told the galaxy, we are here and we are watching. Like a flashlight waved in the forest, it is both a tool and a beacon. What else may now be looking back? The dark forest hypothesis does not say that all civilizations are hostile, only that no one can know. Some may be benevolent, some indifferent, some predatory. But because the stakes are survival itself, this safe strategy is silence. To be silent is to remain hidden. To speak, even by accident, is to risk destruction. This is where the dread lies. Humanity, in its innocence, is not silent. We beam radio waves into the sky. We illuminate our cities with night glow visible from orbit. We launch probes with plaques declaring our existence. To us, these are acts of pride, of curiosity, of hope. But to others, if they are out there, they may be signals of prey, lights in the dark revealing our position. Atlas, in this frame, is not a comet at all, but a mirror, reflecting our own recklessness back at us. Consider how quickly the sequence has unfolded. In 2017, ʻOumuamua appeared. In 2019, Borisov. Then Atlas. 3 interstellar visitors in rapid succession. Each time we looked, we measured, we speculated. Each time our attention flared outward, detectable by anyone with the means to notice. Could it be that we are already part of a game we do not understand? That the forest is less silent than we believe, and that each visitor is a ripple in its undergrowth? There is another, darker speculation still. What if Atlas itself was the trigger? Not merely an observer, but a signal. Its flare of dust, its disintegration, could have been designed to release electromagnetic noise, or gravitational ripples, or other signatures beyond our current ability to detect. To us, it was faint. To others, far away, it may have been loud. Perhaps it was not aimed at us at all. Perhaps we were never the intended audience. We were simply in the wrong place, at the wrong time, overhearing a conversation between civilizations we cannot see. This possibility humbles and terrifies, for it means that the galaxy is not silent, but speaking in a language we barely perceive. Each interstellar object could be a word, a signal, a node in a network of communication. We, stumbling children, are only now beginning to overhear. And like children, we may not understand the danger of listening too closely. Pause again and breathe. The dark forest is only a metaphor, but it captures a primal truth. Uncertainty breeds fear. When the intentions of others cannot be known, every sound is a threat, every visitor a potential danger. Atlas, in its fragility, in its flickering light, could be nothing more than dust. But in the forest of the galaxy, even dust can betray a presence. If this is so, then what should we do? Should we look away? Should we refuse to study the next visitor for fear of revealing ourselves? Such silence is not in our nature. Humanity is curious. We reach, we measure, we dream. And yet in dreaming we may be loud. Perhaps too loud. Imagine now, lying under the stars. Around you, the galaxy stretches. Billions of suns, billions of possible civilizations, each one a potential hunter, or a potential friend, or nothing at all. You do not know which. None of us know. Into that darkness, Atlas passed like a whisper, and we, by answering it, may have whispered back. The dark forest trigger is not proof, but possibility. It asks us to reconsider the innocence of our curiosity, to see study itself as signal, to ask whether we are ready for what might hear us. If Atlas was scout or bait or beacon, then we're no longer only observers, we are participants, and participation carries risk. Breathe slowly, let the thought expand, then soften. The night sky above you is still silent. No fleets descend, no signals overwhelm our radios. Perhaps the forest is empty, perhaps the fears are illusions, but perhaps not. And in that uncertainty lies the edge of cosmic horror. Not the certainty of danger, but the silence that conceals it. Sleep if you wish, held by the calm of the stars. Or stay with me, as in the next chapter we follow this thread to its darkest implication, the great filter, and the question of whether visitors like Atlas are not signs of life, but signs of extinction. The question of life in the universe is as old as wonder itself. If the galaxy holds hundreds of billions of stars, each with planets, each with oceans, atmospheres, and fertile chemistry, then why is it so silent? Why have we not been visited openly? Why do our telescopes not reveal Dyson spheres blazing around stars or fleets crossing interstellar space? This question is known as the Fermi paradox. It is simple to ask but hard to answer. Enrico Fermi, in a lunchtime conversation in 1950, posed it plainly. Where is everybody? One proposed answer is as unsettling as it is profound. The great filter. The idea that somewhere along the path from dust to stars, from chemistry to biology, from biology to intelligence, and from intelligence to technology, there exists a barrier. A filter so difficult, so lethal, that almost all attempts fail. Civilizations like sparks flare and fade before crossing it. Those that survive are rare, perhaps vanishingly so. Now bring Atlas into this frame. If it were probe or ruin, then it is not just a visitor but a message, and the message may not be one of connection, but of warning. For what if the ruin of Atlas is proof that civilizations do not endure? That they build, they scatter fragments, and then they fall. That what we are seeing is not a scout but a ghost. The great filter could lie in many places. It could be behind us, in the leap from non-living chemistry to life itself. Perhaps life is so rare that we are alone. But if Atlas is artificial or ruin, then the filter is not behind us. Others have passed through, others have built, which means the filter lies ahead. This is the darker possibility, that civilizations routinely reach the stars, send probes, scatter ruins, and then collapse. That the galaxy is not empty, but haunted. Haunted not by the living, but by relics. Haunted not by voices, but by silence. Imagine Atlas as one such relic. Once it was launched, bright, purposeful. Once it carried the hopes of its makers. But they are gone, swept aside by war, by exhaustion, by catastrophe. Atlas drifts on, faithful but meaningless, the last ember of a fire long extinguished. And we, encountering it now, are reading not their presence, but their absence. Pause here and breathe. The great filter is not science fiction alone. It is a sobering frame. Humanity itself may face filters, nuclear weapons, climate collapse, biological pandemics, technologies that spiral beyond control. Each is a gate that could close behind us. Each is a way to fall silent before reaching the stars. If Atlas is a ruin, it tells us, this is what happens most of the time. But the filter may be larger still. Perhaps it is not war or failure of stewardship, but cosmic law. Perhaps intelligence itself is unstable. Perhaps civilizations inevitably self-destruct once they reach a certain level of power. Or perhaps the filter is external. Predators in the dark forest extinguishing signals when they appear. In that case, Atlas is not merely a ruin, but a casualty. Not the result of collapse, but of encounter. Consider the unsettling symmetry. We study Atlas, it disintegrates, we puzzle at its fragments. What if one day another species studies our Voyager probes, long after we are gone, puzzling at their fragments? What if Atlas is simply what the galaxy produces again and again, civilizations rising, scattering artifacts, then fading into dust? The cycle repeats, over and over, leaving only ruins for the next to find. The great filter also forces us to see time differently. Our species has existed for less than a blink on the cosmic scale. Civilizations that may have lasted millions of years would still be dust now, long gone before we rose. In that context, Atlas is not strange. It is inevitable. A fragment among countless others, wandering the dark, mute testimony to lives already ended. What then is our place? To some, the great filter is terrifying. It suggests our chances of survival are slim, that our own ruins may drift one day, mute and unremarked. But there is another way to see it. If others have fallen, and yet we are here, then perhaps survival itself is rare. Perhaps we, listening now, are the exception. Perhaps we are the thread that has not yet broken, but the warning remains. Atlas, if ruin, is not hope but caution. It is the whisper of extinction written in dust, a reminder that time is not generous, that civilizations are fragile, that the galaxy is full not of empires, but of graves. Pause again and look at the night sky. Each star is a possibility. Each possibility may already be gone. How many ruins drift unseen? How many Atlas-like visitors have passed unnoticed? The silence of the galaxy is not absence, it is aftermath. And yet we search. We dream. We build. To acknowledge the great filter is not to surrender, but to see clearly. If the filter lies ahead, then awareness is our only hope of crossing it. If Atlas is ruin, then it has done us a service. It has shown us what failure looks like. Fragile, flickering, breaking apart too soon. The horror of the great filter is not drama. It is quiet. It is the knowledge that civilizations vanish not with spectacle, but with silence. That their ruins drift unnoticed, mistaken for comets, dissolving into dust. That this may be our fate as well, unless we learn. Breathe slowly. Let the thoughts settle. The great filter is not prophecy, but possibility. Atlas is not proof, but suggestion. It came, it puzzled, it left. What remains is our interpretation, our imagination, our warning. Sleep if you wish, or stay with me. For in the next part we will move deeper still, into visions of silent invasion, of nanotechnologies and altered laws of physics, where Atlas is not ruin but harbinger, a shifting of reality itself. There is a comfort in thinking of Atlas as a ruin, a fragment of a dead civilization drifting without purpose. It allows us to mourn without fear. But what if Atlas was not only past but present? Not only debris but design? What if, instead of telling us what has already ended, it was beginning something new? This is the idea of the silent invasion. Not an invasion of fleets, visible and thunderous, but of seeds. Nanoscopic machines, invisible spores, information encoded in dust. Atlas, in this frame, was not merely a comet but a delivery system, a Trojan horse carried across interstellar space, breaking apart to scatter its contents. When it disintegrated, it left behind fragments, dust clouds drifting in solar winds, particles settling into orbits. To us they were nothing more than fading traces soon forgotten. But what if those fragments carried more? What if within that dust were seeds, molecular machines too small to detect, programmed to wait, to infiltrate, to replicate? The thought is unsettling, and yet not implausible. Our own scientists are already designing nanomachines, structures smaller than cells, capable of entering the bloodstream, repairing tissues, carrying information. If we can imagine such machines, why not others, older and greater, capable of drifting through the galaxy embedded in comets? A silent invasion would not arrive with noise, it would arrive with dust. And dust is patient. It settles on Earth, on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter, carried by winds and impacts. It mingles with the soil, dissolves in the oceans, hides in the atmosphere. We would not notice. We do not notice. Already, thousands of tons of cosmic dust fall on Earth each year, unnoticed by most. Atlas could have been only a fraction of that rain, a subtle increase, invisible. Yet within that rain could lie transformation. Perhaps it is benign. Perhaps the seeds are builders, carrying the instructions for life, planting chemistry that will awaken in the right conditions. In this view, Atlas is not invasion but panspermia, a gardener scattering life across the stars. Perhaps life on Earth itself began this way, seeded by comets carrying molecules from elsewhere. If so, Atlas is only continuing the cycle. But there is a darker possibility. Perhaps the seeds are not benign but colonizers, not life to nourish, but life to replace. Machines designed to adapt, to spread, to consume. They may not awaken immediately. They may wait, buried, until signals call them. Or they may already be awake, too small to see, too slow to recognize, working quietly toward ends we cannot predict. Pause here. Breathe. The thought is heavy, but remember, it is only speculation. No evidence yet points to invasion, and yet speculation reveals possibilities we must face. If a silent invasion were to come, this is how it would arrive, unnoticed, unchallenged, drifting as dust. There is another possibility, stranger still, not invasion but alteration. A reality shift. Imagine that Atlas carried not machines but information. Patterns encoded in molecules, designed not to change our biology but our physics. Laws of nature are stable, but what if they are not absolute? What if advanced civilizations can manipulate them? To alter constants, to tune probabilities, to seed reality itself with new instructions. The idea seems impossible. Yet consider, physics as we know it is description, not prescription. We describe what we observe, but we do not know why the universe's constants are what they are. Why is the speed of light finite? Why is gravity weak compared to electromagnetism? Why does matter outweigh antimatter? We call these fundamentals, but to a civilization far ahead, perhaps they are malleable. If so, then Atlas could have been not a comet, but a carrier of instructions, its dust scattering, not to seed life, but to seed law, to alter reality in ways too subtle for us to yet perceive. Perhaps the anomalies we measured, the erratic light curves, the premature breakup, the missing chemistry, were side effects of rules shifting at the edge of our comprehension. Perhaps Atlas was not behaving strangely. Perhaps the universe itself was adjusting. This is the deepest form of invasion, not of armies, not of machines, but of physics, to change what can exist, to shape reality into forms more favourable to the designers. We would not resist, because resistance would be meaningless. We would not notice until one day we realised the universe had grown unfamiliar. Pause again. Let this thought flow gently, not with panic, but with perspective. If such powers exist, they are far beyond us. If such changes occur, they unfold slowly across aeons. Nothing in our daily lives shifts from one heartbeat to the next. The stars above still burn, the moon still circles, the earth still turns. But perhaps in the background subtle alterations are at work, imperceptible to us now. Silent invasion, reality shift. These are terrifying phrases, but they are also humbling. They remind us that we are small, that we do not command the galaxy but drift within it, subject to forces we barely understand. They remind us that not all dangers come with noise, some come with silence. And yet, silence can be beautiful. Look outside your window, the night is still, the stars are calm, the invasion, if it exists, is invisible, patient, gentle. If reality is shifting, it is doing so slowly, softly, like the tide reshaping the shoreline grain by grain. You need not fear, you need only wonder. Atlas is gone now, its fragments dispersed, its dust scattered. If it carried seeds, they are already part of us. If it carried instructions, they are already written into the cosmos. If it was only a comet, then it was still a marvel. A traveller from another star, a messenger reminding us of how vast the universe is. Sleep, if you wish, comforted by the stillness. Or stay awake and follow me into the next chapter, where we will gather these shadows into their darkest form. For beyond invasion, beyond ruins, beyond filters, lies the worst-case scenario, a coherent vision of the galaxy as hostile, silent and lethal, and of Atlas as one more sign in that terrible pattern. When we look at the night sky, we often see beauty. Stars glitter like diamonds, planets wander with serene regularity, the Milky Way flows like a river of light. It is easy to imagine the universe as calm, indifferent perhaps, but not hostile. Yet the data of Three-Eye Atlas, its anomalies, its contradictions, whisper of darker possibilities. If we connect the darkest dots, a picture emerges, a worst-case scenario. In this scenario, the galaxy is not empty, it is not silent. It is a battlefield, not of armies, but of shadows. Civilizations rise, but they do not flourish openly. They live in fear of each other, hidden, cautious, like hunters in the dark forest. Probes are not messages, but weapons. Ruins are not relics, but warnings. And interstellar objects like Atlas are not accidents, but evidence of the rules of survival. Begin with the dark forest. If every civilization is both potential prey and potential predator, then the safest strategy is silence. Do not broadcast. Do not reveal. Do not risk being found. But silence does not mean peace. Silence hides constant surveillance. Silent probes, silent watchers, machines that drift unseen, cataloguing, listening. Perhaps Atlas was one of these, a scout disguised as a comet passing close, gathering signals, then breaking apart to release smaller instruments. Now fold in the Great Filter. Most civilizations fail. Some destroy themselves, others are destroyed. The ruins that remain drift as debris. If Atlas were one such ruin, then it was a shard of a lost civilization, a ghost in our sky. But in this worst-case scenario, ruin and probe are not separate. They are one. For every probe becomes ruin eventually. Every machine becomes debris. The galaxy is filled not with flourishing life, but with its corpses. Add the silent invasion. If probes are seeds, then dust carries nanomachines, invisible colonizers. Some may be benign, planting life. Others may be predatory, designed to consume, to alter, to claim. Atlas, breaking apart, may have scattered such seeds. They are already in our system, in our atmosphere, perhaps even in our cells. We would not know. The invasion would not roar, it would whisper. Finally, the reality shift. If advanced civilizations can alter the laws of physics, then the battlefield is stranger still. Probes may not only carry machines, but rules, instructions to rewrite constants, to tilt the balance of nature in favor of their makers. To us, anomalies look like errors in data. To them, they may be signs of a deeper manipulation. The flickers of Atlas, its missing chemistry, its symmetrical fragments. These may not be flaws, but fingerprints of physics being tuned. Put all these pieces together, and the picture becomes chilling. The galaxy is alive with civilizations, but almost none survive. Those that do are hunters or ghosts. They send probes not to communicate, but to scout, to seed, to shift. Every interstellar visitor may carry hidden purposes, invisible cargo, and we, by observing them, by measuring them, reveal ourselves as participants in this silent war. In this vision, Atlas was all of these at once, a ruin of the dead, a probe of the living, a seed of the silent invasion, a trigger in the dark forest, a fragment of a filter that consumes civilizations. Its disintegration was not failure, but function. Its anomalies were not accidents, but signatures. Its presence in our sky was not neutral. It was a reminder that the universe is not kind, that survival is rare, that danger is the rule, not the exception. Pause here and breathe. The weight of this picture is heavy, but remember, it is only possibility, a worst case. It may not be true. But to imagine it is to understand why the silence of the galaxy is frightening, why absence of evidence is not comfort, but unease. Think of the stars above you, each one a sun, each one a system, each one a possibility. If this scenario is true, then most of those stars are tombs, their civilizations ended, their ruins drifting, their probes silent. The few that remain are hunters, watching, waiting, listening for the careless signal. We, broadcasting radio waves, illuminating cities, sending probes, are like children shouting in a forest at night. Brave, yes. Hopeful, yes. But also vulnerable. Now return to Atlas. It came, faint, fragile, flickering. It disintegrated too soon, too neatly. It puzzled, it unsettled, and then it left. If the worst-case scenario is true, then Atlas was not Comet at all, but participant. One more piece in a game we barely understand. Perhaps its purpose is already complete. Perhaps its seeds are already planted. Perhaps its signal has already been sent. We would not know. That is the nature of the worst case. It unfolds quietly. By the time we see, it is too late. And yet, in this darkness there is a strange comfort. For even if the galaxy is hostile, even if ruins outnumber voices, even if we are vulnerable, we're still here, alive, listening, wondering. Our lantern of science still burns, our questions still echo. We are still walking in the forest, still daring to look up at the stars. The worst-case scenario is terrifying, but it is not certain. It is only one picture drawn from fragments. Perhaps the truth is softer. Perhaps Atlas was only a comet after all. Perhaps the forest is not dark, but quiet. Perhaps the filter is behind us, not ahead. We do not know, we cannot know. And so, between fear and wonder, we continue. Breathe slowly. The night sky is still, the stars are patient. The horrors we imagine are only possibilities, not certainties. But to imagine them is to prepare, to awaken, to see the universe with both awe and caution. Sleep if you wish, letting the vision dissolve. Or remain with me, as in the next part we turn from horror to philosophy, reflecting on what Atlas teaches us about our place in the cosmos, not only as fragile creatures, but as conscious beings daring to dream. For so many chapters, we have followed Three-Eye Atlas into the shadows, through data and failure, through speculation and dread, through whispers of probes and ruins, filters and forests. Each turn deepened the mystery, until the visitor seemed less like a comet and more like a mirror reflecting our fears. Now, as we near the end of its story, the question shifts. Not what was Atlas, but what does Atlas mean for us? This is where science and philosophy converge. For Atlas is gone, dispersed into dust, its secrets unresolved. What remains is not certainty but perspective. The fragments we studied were not just cometary debris. They were fragments of our own understanding scattered across the night sky. Pause here and breathe. Philosophy begins where data ends. It begins in the silence left by unanswered questions. That silence is not failure, it is invitation. What does it mean to live in a universe where objects like Atlas appear? Visitors from beyond, brief and puzzling, reminding us that the solar system is not isolated but porous, open to the currents of the galaxy. It means we are part of something larger. The boundary of our world is not the edge of the sun's influence. It is not the farthest orbit of Neptune or Pluto. It is the galaxy itself, whose tides sweep through us, carrying fragments of distant systems, scattering them across our skies. It means we're not as alone as we once thought. Even if Atlas was only a comet, it was a comet born of another star carrying chemistry foreign to our system, born of processes we can only glimpse from afar. In studying it, we touched the wider galaxy, not in theory but in matter. It is one thing to know that other stars exist. It is another to hold their fragments in our instruments, to measure their dust, to see their light. It also means humility. For each time we thought we understood Atlas, the data resisted. Our theories faltered, our models failed. We were reminded that our knowledge, vast as it seems to us, is narrow still, that the universe is not obliged to be simple, that the categories we build, comet, asteroid, probe, ruin, are only scaffolds, and the cosmos is under no obligation to fit within them. Humility, however, need not be despair. To be humbled is to be reminded of scale. We are small, yes, but smallness is not weakness, it is perspective. To look up at the sky and know how little we know is not to diminish ourselves, but to awaken wonder. The visitor did not belittle us. It enlarged us by revealing how much more there is to learn. There is another lesson, mortality. Atlas disintegrated, its nucleus undone, its fragments fading. It did not endure, and so it becomes a metaphor for us. Civilizations, like comets, are fragile. They flare briefly, they shine, and then they pass. To see Atlas crumble is to glimpse our own impermanence, and to be reminded that survival is not guaranteed. Yet impermanence is not meaningless. Even in breaking, Atlas taught us. Even in fading, it left a story. Perhaps this is the deepest philosophy of the unknown, that meaning does not come from permanence, but from presence. Atlas was here, briefly. It puzzled us, unsettled us, inspired us. Then it left. Its gift was not clarity, but wonder. And wonder endures. Now consider the paradox. We long to know whether we are alone. We search for signals, for evidence, for proof. And yet, when something unusual appears, ʻOumuamua, Borisov, Atlas, we are confronted not with answers, but with deeper uncertainty. The more we look, the less we understand. At first this seems frustrating, but it may be the true gift. For certainty ends the story. Uncertainty lets it continue. If we had proved that Atlas was only a comet, ordinary and predictable, then it would be forgotten. But because it resisted us, it lives on, not in its dust, but in our imagination. It is the resistance itself that keeps it alive. Pause here, and let that settle. The unknown is not our enemy. It is the canvas on which we paint our questions. The dark of the sky is not emptiness, but invitation. Atlas was not silence. It was a question asked across interstellar distance. Our task is not to answer quickly, but to live with the question, to let it shape us. Philosophy also asks us to reflect inward. What does our reaction to Atlas reveal about us? We built telescopes to watch the skies. We shared data across nations, across cultures. We speculated wildly, from natural to artificial, from ruin to invasion. All of this reveals who we are: curious, restless, imaginative, prone to fear but also to wonder. Atlas is a mirror of humanity itself, fragile, flickering, unfinished, but luminous in its striving. In this way, the visitor becomes less about the cosmos and more about us. To wonder about Atlas is to wonder about humanity. Are we fragile rubble, destined to crumble too soon? Are we seeds, scattering life across the stars? Are we ruins, leaving behind artifacts for others to puzzle over? Or are we scouts, whispering into the dark, daring to see who answers? None of these answers is final. All of them are possible. Atlas teaches us that possibility is enough. To live in a universe filled with possibility is to live in richness, not emptiness. Look again at the night sky. Each star is a possibility. Each possibility may hold life, may hold ruins, may hold silence. We cannot know yet. But to look is to participate. To wonder is to belong. Atlas did not pass us by unnoticed. We saw it. We cared. And in that act of caring, we declared ourselves part of the larger story. Philosophy tells us this, that our place in the cosmos is not measured by certainty but by attention. To attend to the universe, to listen, to notice, is itself meaning. We may be fragile, we may be fleeting, but we are awake. Breathe deeply. Feel that truth settle. Atlas is gone, but it left us awake. Awake to our fragility, awake to our wonder, awake to the vastness of a universe that will always be larger than us. And that is enough. Sleep if you wish, carried by the calm of this reflection. Or remain with me, as in the next chapter we gather the mysteries into a single truth, that we know less than we wish and more than we deserve, and that the unknown itself is a gift. There is a phrase used in science, one that is as humble as it is profound. Known unknowns. These are the things we are aware of not knowing. They are not mysteries hidden beyond our imagination, but mysteries we have glimpsed and cannot yet resolve. They remind us that ignorance is not absence, but presence, a shape in the dark, felt but unseen. 3i Atlas leaves us with many such shapes. It was small, fragile, faint, visible for only a short time. Its dust has dispersed, its fragments are gone, its light no longer reaches us. What remains is not the object itself, but the record, datasets, images, light curves, spectra. And in those records, the anomalies linger. We know, for instance, that Atlas disintegrated earlier than expected. But we do not know why. Was it fragility, structure, chemistry, design? Each explanation fits partly, but none fits wholly. The disintegration remains a known unknown. We know that its fragments were oddly neat, nearly symmetrical. But we do not know whether this was coincidence or intention. Nature can produce order, but so can design. The fragments, like beads on a string, remain a known unknown. We know that its light curves flickered erratically, defying predictions. But we do not know whether those flickers were caused by dust jets, reflective surfaces, or something we have not imagined. The flickering brightness remains a known unknown. We know that its spectra lacked expected chemical signatures, but we do not know whether this was due to depletion, distance, error, or something stranger. The missing chemistry remains a known unknown. We know that it was the third interstellar visitor after ʻOumuamua and Borisov, but we do not know why these visitors appeared in such quick succession, when for centuries none were seen. Was it luck, coincidence, or cosmic pattern? The timing remains a known unknown. Each of these uncertainties is not failure, they are doors. They invite further study, deeper observation, wider imagination. Science thrives not on answers but on questions. For each answer opens 10 more questions, and each question widens the horizon. This is the essence of humility. To know what we do not know, and to honour it. To resist the temptation of premature certainty, and to let mystery breathe. Atlas teaches us this humility. It resisted our categories, and in doing so, it reminded us of our limits. But humility need not be despair, it can also be wonder. For to live surrounded by known unknowns is to live in a universe alive with possibility. Imagine the alternative, a universe fully mapped, fully explained, every mystery resolved. Such a universe would be smaller, poorer, emptier. The unknown is not a void, it is richness, it is invitation. Pause here and breathe. Think of the night sky above you. Each star you see is a known, a sun, burning, distant, luminous. But around each star are unknowns, planets unseen, atmospheres unmeasured, histories untold. Beyond the stars are galaxies, billions of them, each a cathedral of known unknowns. We know they exist, we do not know their stories. Atlas is one more such unknown, a visitor that passed through our system, whispering questions and leaving before answers could form. Its gift was not data alone, but humility. It reminded us that the cosmos will not yield its secrets easily. That wonder is not only in what we know, but in what we cannot know yet. Scientists will continue to search. New telescopes, like the Vera Rubin Observatory, will scan the skies with unprecedented depth. More interstellar visitors will be found. Some will be ordinary. Some will be strange. Each will add to the ledger of known unknowns. Over time, patterns may emerge. Some mysteries may be resolved. Others will deepen. The dance of knowledge and ignorance will continue, as it always has. And what of us, the listeners, the dreamers? We live within this dance. We are participants in it. To hear of Atlas is not only to learn about a comet, but to be reminded of our place, small, fragile, temporary, but awake. To live with known unknowns is to live with humility. To sleep under stars whose stories we do not yet know is to sleep in wonder. Perhaps this is the true legacy of Atlas. Not proof of aliens, not evidence of ruins, not certainty of invasion, but a lesson in humility. A reminder that science is a journey, not a destination. A reminder that the universe is larger than our categories, stranger than our theories, older than our civilizations. A reminder that to know is rare, and to not know is common, and that both are gifts. Breathe slowly. Let this humility soften you. Let it loosen the grip of certainty. Let it remind you that it is enough to ask, enough to notice, enough to wonder. The known unknowns are not failures, they are invitations to dream. And so, as Atlas fades into memory, we are left not with answers but with questions. And questions are fertile ground. They are the soil of discovery. They are the lullabies of wonder. They are the bridges between science and philosophy, between fear and awe, between waking and sleep. Sleep now, if you wish, carried by the calm of humility, or linger, as in the final part we descend into silence, gathering the threads of fear and wonder, of knowledge and ignorance into a gentle close, a conclusion not of certainty, but of rest. The story of Three-Eye Atlas has carried us far. We began with its discovery, faint and fleeting in the wide net of our telescopes. We traced its anomalies, its premature breakup, its symmetrical fragments, its strange light. We walked through the theories of science, watched them falter, and then stepped into speculation, probes, ruins, filters, invasions. We descended into cosmic horror, then rose again into philosophy and humility, and now, at the end, we come to silence. To the soft conclusion that is not conclusion at all, but rest. Pause here. Breathe deeply. Feel the air enter, feel it leave. Above you, whether you're outside or simply imagining, the stars continue their patient watch. They burn not for us, not for anyone, but for themselves, fusing hydrogen into helium, steady and eternal compared to our fragile span. The cosmos does not hurry. The cosmos does not end with our questions. It goes on. Atlas has already gone. Its fragments have scattered. Its dust has dispersed into the solar wind. Soon there will be nothing left of it to see, nothing left to measure. But in another sense, it will never leave us. Its mystery lingers. Its anomalies remain recorded. Its story has joined our imagination, and imagination endures. This is the final descent. From data to dust, from fear to calm, from question to rest. Think again of its journey, born perhaps in another star system ejected by gravity into interstellar space, drifting for millions of years in silence, untouched, unseen. Then, by chance, brushing against our sun, brightening briefly, flickering, breaking and fading. A journey of immense scale noticed by us for only a moment. There is a lesson in that arc, a reminder that scale humbles. What we think of as long, centuries, millennia, is only a heartbeat to the galaxy. What we think of as permanent, nations, cities, lives, is as fragile as dust. And yet, within that fragility there is beauty. For just as Atlas flared briefly in our sky, so too do we flare briefly in the universe, and both are luminous while they last. Now let us slow further. Imagine yourself lying beneath the stars. Your body grows heavy, sinking into the earth or into the mattress beneath you. The weight of your limbs, the softness of your breath. Above you, the constellations wheel slowly, indifferent and eternal. Orion's belt, the curve of Lyra, the great river of the Milky Way. You are small beneath them, but not excluded. You are part of the same cosmos, made of the same atoms, born of the same stars. In the stillness, imagine Atlas again, far away now, its fragments invisible, its dust mingling with the interplanetary medium. No one watches it anymore. No telescope records it. It drifts unseen, and yet it matters still, for it reminds us that the universe is alive with motion, that fragments of elsewhere reach us, that we're not sealed off but connected. We may never know what Atlas was. Comet, probe, ruin, seed, all remain possible, all remain open. That unknowing is not a failure, it is a gift, for it allows us to imagine, it allows us to dream, it allows us to rest, not in certainty, but in wonder. Breathe again. Let the rhythm of your breath match the rhythm of the cosmos. Slow, steady, endless. Inhale as galaxies inhale stars. Exhale as stars exhale light. You're part of that rhythm. You're woven into its fabric. You're not separate from the mystery. You are the mystery. The final descent is not into answers, but into sleep, into the stillness that follows curiosity, into the silence that follows speculation. Atlas has gone, its story is done, but your story continues, in dreams, in thoughts, in the gentle drift into rest. Perhaps, as you close your eyes, you will dream of the galaxy as a forest, not dark, not frightening, but luminous. A forest of stars, each tree a sun, each branch a world, each leaf a question. You walk through it slowly, calmly, unafraid. The visitors pass overhead like birds, fleeting, mysterious, beautiful. They do not threaten, they do not demand, they simply remind you of the vastness beyond. Or perhaps you will dream of ruins, not desolate but serene. Ancient cities of stone, crumbled but peaceful. Relics of civilizations long gone, but their silence is not hostile. It is tranquil. You wander through them gently, knowing that you too are temporary, and that temporariness is enough. Or perhaps you will dream of ships, fragile and small, like Atlas itself. Ships drifting between stars, carrying questions rather than answers. You watch them pass, and you are comforted, for you know you're not alone in wondering. Whatever you dream, let it be soft, let it be calm, let it hold you as the night sky holds the stars, gently, endlessly, without demand. The story of Thri Atlas ends not with revelation, but with rest. And so too does this narration. You have followed the journey from discovery to speculation, from fear to philosophy, from fragments to humility. Now the path narrows into silence. The visitor is gone, the questions remain, and you, drifting now towards sleep, are part of the same cosmos that sent Atlas across our sky. Close your eyes, feel the weight of your body soften, feel the stars above, steady, ancient, patient. Feel the mystery within you, unhurried, unresolved, but gentle. This is the final descent, into sleep, into stillness, into the embrace of the unknown. Rest now. Rest beneath the stars. Rest with the knowledge that you are small and yet vast, fragile and yet luminous, temporary and yet eternal in your connection to the cosmos. Rest as Atlas has rested. Rest as the universe itself rests. Rest and dreams.